Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Vigilante Deku Never Got One for All? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya was a happy child. Izuku Midoriya did have parents who loved him. Izuku Midoriya had normal life. Until he was 4 years old. That fateful day at the doctor's was when everything went downhill in Izuku Midoriya's life. Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen. To say Hisashi Midoriya was furious was an understatement. He had wasted 4 whole years on that and so many more years on the beach who be a quirkless failure. He grabbed that thing's arm and stormed out of the doctor's and drove home. Daddy? Can I still be a hero without a Q quirk? Don't you dare call me that again, you brat. I'm not your father. Don't talk to me. As the two got home, Izuku ran to his mother and hugged her. She hugged back. What is it, sweetheart? How did the appointment go? That was the last time Izuku had been hugged. Izuku sobbed into his mother as his father stormed in. Get off of that, he is a quirkless, he doesn't deserve such love. Inko Midoriya's face twisted as she pushed Izuku off of her. Izuku will never forget that moment. Izuku, go to your room. No. His mother said with a cold look on her face. As Izuku went to his room, he closed his door and heard his parents yelling. He didn't understand. What was so bad about being quirkless? Why did Daddy say not to call him Daddy? He is still the same person, isn't he? His mommy and Daddy love him, don't they? Izuku had never been so wrong in his life. Izuku snapped out of his thoughts as he heard a scream from his mother. He opened his door to see her on the floor. There was red. He only saw red. His father walked up to him. Then he felt pain, and then only darkness. Everything had gone black. That was the day Izuku learned that not everyone was created equal. He learned that he was worthless, a monster whose only purpose was to make people feel better about themselves by looking down on him and using him as someone they could hurt. Over the next 6 years, that all that had ever happened. His father had left that day. For the better or worse, Izuku will never know. But it had been 6 years since that incident. Izuku was 10 now. But life wasn't better. His former best friend Kaken, he didn't know why he still called him that, beat him down every day with his new friends. Every day he would come home with a new bruise or burn. But nobody cared about a weakling like him. When he would get home, his mother would either be passed out with a bottle of whatever cheap alcohol she'd bought that week, or she'd be ready to teach Izuku a lesson for just existing. Izuku completely hated himself at the age if he hasn't smiled in years or felt happiness. He had to make his own meals, clean and dress his own wounds, tuck himself into bed at night, get himself to school. He had been independent for years. He didn't need his mother. That was why when he came home from school on Friday the 20th of December, the last day of school before Christmas break, he wasn't surprised to see 10,000 yen, pounds 71.96/$95.89, on the coffee table with a note laying beside it. Izuku, here's some cash, it will last you a couple weeks for food and water if you use it wisely. However, I don't think you are capable of that. You have 2 weeks to get out of the apartment before the rent is up. I'm PR'd in tea with my new boyfriend and we decided we didn't want to raise this child anywhere near a quirkless failure. I don't want to see you again, so stay away. Inko Midoriya. That's the day Izuku Midoriya's heart broke. Everything came crashing down on him. He couldn't be hero. Nobody loved him. He actually was alone. Izuku shouldn't be surprised, he knew this would happen sooner or later, but that didn't mean he wasn't devastated. Even when she hurt him so much he passed out in a pool of his own blood, even when she would punch him so hard he threw up. He was still sad because this meant he really was useless. Even as a punching bag he was useful for him. But now? He was completely useless. As much as he wanted to hate his mother he couldn't, because he knew he deserved this. His mum had finally snapped. Left him for dead. She didn't care. She had a new family now. He was about to be homeless with only 10,000 yen. He could never be a hero. Tears started pouring from his eyes until he collapsed, alone. He was about to be homeless with only 10,000 yen. He could never be a hero. Tears started pouring from his eyes until he collapsed, alone. The next day he woke up with the memories of the night before flooding back to him. He was on the floor beside the note. As he sat up, he pressed his head in his hands thinking about how a 10-year-old quirkless child would survive out there. Granted, it was his birthday in only a few weeks, but still. He stood up looking out of the window as the rain bounced on the floor. He groaned and walked over to the kitchen. Great, some old milk and an apple for breakfast. He sighed, rubbing his arm from his most recent burn. His mum had cleared out the house of food, so he had to figure out what to do fast. He turned back to look at the money sat on the table and signed again. Guess this is my life now. Over the next couple hours, Izuku analyzed what to do about his life. He had multiple choices. He could go to the police and tell them about everything that happened and how his mum had left, leaving him with barely any money and 2 weeks left on the rent. However, that would most likely end up in him going to some orphanage or foster home where he may be treated worse than his mum treated him if that was possible. He could find his mum and try and convince her to take him back. However, he knew he didn't want to ruin his mum's life further or the life of his apparent unborn sibling. He could just be homeless, living off the streets and maybe get a job? This seems like his obvious choice, but how do you actually be homeless? He knew that was a stupid question, but he was seriously unsure of where his life was heading at this point. Then there was that option, but he knew she shouldn't think about that as much as he'd been told previously to do it. He doesn't think he could. And besides, he don't want to give everyone the satisfaction of knowing I caved into what they wanted of me. Izuku knew his best course of action would just to be homeless. He could figure it out, right? How bad could it be? He can research what to do at the library. Yeah, he can. It's fine. I'm fine. Izuku jumped up and grabbed his bag, not even bothering to change out of his uniform from yesterday, and headed to library. He had no idea how stupid he was, or how hard this would all really be. It had been 2 weeks. Izuku had spent his last 2 weeks figuring out what he should do. He had made a few arrangements, but there is only so much a soon-to-be 11-year-old quirkless boy can do in Tokyo. He had gotten a job at local coffee shop, and they only hired him because he had practically begged the owner to let him work there, telling him his mother was tight on money and he was 14, just small for his age. The pay wasn't much, but it was something, and his best bet was a local cafe before big chains wouldn't hire anyone this young. He then found a nearby block of apartments which had been abandoned for nearly 30 years. Nobody would go there and find him there. Not like anyone would care. He had figured out a plan to deal with everything. At least he thought he did. He would sneak into the local swimming pool twice a week to shower. He would still go to school because he needed education. He also wanted to try for UA one day, even though being quirkless means he probably wouldn't get in. Maybe he could try for general education? Or maybe he was hopeless. He would also go to the local dry cleaners to clean his clothes weekly and even his money out every week to have at least one meal a day. He was fine. He didn't need to do much more, right? Izuku stood in his living room, staring at his surroundings. He had lived here for nearly 11 years. As much as it was no longer his home and hadn't been in a while, he would miss it. Izuku had already spent most of his mom's money on buying food. He had bought lots of cans and food that didn't need to be cooked and could just last a while. They were already at the building. He was still hoping nobody would see them, but nobody had been near the building in years, so he was probably safe. A single tear rolled down his face. This was real. This was happening right now. There were no do-overs, no delaying, no nothing. He had to go now before the landlord came by. He had to grow up. He picked up his old yellow ratty school bag and his dark green hoodie, gave the area a final glance and left. Goodbye, I guess, he muttered as he left the apartment, locking the door and pushing the key back through the letterbox. He had done it. Finally left. As he strolled down the dark streets late at night, there were only a few people, most likely drunk. The sky was clear, which was a relief, as Izuku seriously didn't want to get wet before he got to his new home, as he would have nothing to dry himself off with, and the massive gaping hole in the side of the building would probably make him even more cold. Izuku started analyzing about what he would do and how he could train his body into being stronger, as he currently barely had any muscle and he needed to stay strong to survive in the winter. Izuku was snapped out of his thoughts as he heard a scream, and he ran towards it, not thinking of what he was going to do. He finally approached an alleyway where a woman was cowering in the corner as a man stood over her, attempting to grab at her. Izuku froze. CRP, what do I do? What do I do? Izuku quickly scrambled in his bag and pulled out his black face mask he kept on him just in case. What would he use to get him away? Izuku panicked, picked up a large rock from the floor. Hey! Leave her alone, the whole. Izuku stood before him. He was violently shaking, but that didn't matter, he had to help the woman. Oh yeah, and what's a tiny kid like you gonna do about it? The man ran at him in a poor attempt to punch him. However, from the years of analysis, bullying and abuse, he had learned a few tricks and dodged. The man turned to him now, incredibly set off. You brat! As he charged at him again, Izuku freaked out and held the rock in his hand. It was really heavy for a rock, he thought to himself, but he didn't have time. So, threw the large rock at the man's head, making him fall to the ground. Oh shit, I just did that. I just knocked someone out. Izuku walked over to them and they were bleeding from their head. No, did I kill him? CRP, if I've killed him I'll be arrested too and I'll die in prison. It hasn't even been an hour of being FNG homeless and I've killed someone. Oh god, I'm such a failure, I'm such an idiot, why am I? His thoughts were cut off by him groaning. Thank God, guess it wasn't that hard of a throw. He then walked over to the lady who was sobbing in the corner and he reached out his hand. Miss, are you hurt? He was in shock over what had just happened. She shook her head. Who are you? Izuku froze, he couldn't tell her his name, oh god. It isn't really important, he trailed off only to start talking again, but this time with more confidence. Can you call the police? We need him to be arrested and he might need his head looking at. She nodded quickly and called them. As she did this, Izuku didn't know whether he should leave or not. He had just assaulted someone and he was quirkless. Things really weren't going well. He would be put in prison before he could even take his first breath into the courtroom. As the woman looked busy on the phone with the police, he slowly walked away, turned out of the alley when behind him someone shouted at him. Hey! Stop! The man's hair was in the air defying gravity and was wearing yellow goggles. He held his scarf, his capture weapon in his hand. This was Eraserhead. Izuku loved Eraserhead. He was so skilled, even though he fought quirkless, he almost always caught his opponents at sheet. Izuku turned around and ran as fast as he could while the capture weapon was heading for him. He had to get out of there. Aizawa's POV. The night had been relatively quiet. He had only broken up a few drag deals and a fight. But that didn't mean he wasn't completely exhausted. All he wanted to do was to be at home with Zashi and his cats, watching TV. That's why when he heard a scream, he jumped building to building until he reached an alleyway. He expected many things, however he hadn't expected someone to be there throwing a rock at a man's head. Especially someone so small looking. He knew vigilantes were still around, of course they were, but he hadn't seen one in a couple years. However, this must be a vigilante? As he got closer, he noticed that this vigilante looked like a child. He had a dark green hoodie covering his hair, with a black mask. And when he spoke he sounded scared and so young. Suddenly he started to walk away. He couldn't let this vigilante child get away. No child should know how to do what he just did. Hey! Stop! He activated his quirk to make sure he couldn't get away, but when he did, the kid didn't even flinch. He just saw him and ran. Aizawa chased him trying to get him to come back, but it was too late. He just disappeared into the shadows. He groaned, he was too tired to deal with this. He had to talk to Tsukachi. He walked back to where the woman was, and when he got there the police were there along with Tsukachi. So he went over to him. Hey Eraser. Been few months since I've seen ya. How are you and Hisashi these days? We are fine. He's still loud though. He said, rubbing his face, which get a laugh out of Tsukachi. So it seems there was a vigilante here? Did you catch anything about him, Eraser? Aizawa groaned. Well, he seemed really small, like a child, definitely younger than my first years. But I didn't catch anything, and when I erased his quirk nothing happened. I didn't even see his quirk. I thought maybe it was speed, but I'm not sure, he said, thinking back to the boy. No problem, Eraser. Probably a new vigilante. A child seems concerning though. We can get you to describe him to someone and they can draw him and we can get it out there so people can see it. Aizawa only nodded in response. He already knew he was going to be a problem child. Well, Tsukachi, see you later. My patrol ended 10 minutes ago. See you soon, Eraser. As Aizawa walked back to his apartment, something didn't sit right with him about this boy. He had to find him. He wonders if his parents know about this. I need some sleep, he thought as he opened the front door of his apartment. Time passes slowly when you are alone. At least that's what Izuku thought. It had been nearly a week since he'd helped the woman. He had been homeless a whole week. It was hard. Izuku was adjusting to life and figuring out what to do. He had gone back to school and somehow Kaken's bullying only got worse. It was like he knew how hard his life was right now and he just wanted to make it worse. Things weren't going well. Izuku had also started his work at the cafe. He was currently living off his cans of food he had bought with his mom's money, and he was almost always starving because he wanted to savor it. The nights were the worst. Due to the hole in the side of the building, he was freezing and he had to buy several more blankets with his money from the cafe. To top it all off, his nightmares had gotten terrible. Sometimes they were about his mom or Kaken, but it don't matter because every night they got worse. After the incident regarding the woman he saved, they had aired the story on a local news channel surprisingly. However, they were now looking for a vigilante which they were calling Shadow. Guess I'm a vigilante now. He chuckled slightly. Izuku had spent his spare time researching vigilantism and the laws behind it at the library. Vigilante: the act of using your quirk to protect people from danger whilst simultaneously acting violently to others. Izuku realized that they couldn't be arrested for vigilantism if he were to be caught. Maybe only assault, but he could say it was self-defense at the worst. What was he thinking? He couldn't be a vigilante, could he? The more Izuku read up on the matter, the more he realized this is what he had to do. He could never be hero whilst being quirkless. He wouldn't get the chance, but a vigilante, easy. He could help people nobody would know, nobody would stop him. So, he decided to get his act together and train. Izuku had been going to Dagoba Beach for years now, even with all the trash lying around. But it was perfect. Izuku couldn't think of anything better to do to train. So, he, the timid quirkless boy, would clean this beach. Because besides, if he can't do this, he definitely can't be a vigilante. So he began training, and his birthday soon passed, which he spent alone in his home being pathetic, crying about how he missed his mom and dad before he was diagnosed quirkless. But that didn't matter because he had had bigger things to do to make life better for other people. Soon days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months until it was October again. It had been about 10 months since he left his childhood home. Since she abandoned him. 10 freaking months. Izuku knew he was probably being stupid. He had spent the last 10 months training to be a vigilante, or whatever you call a quirkless one at least. He had learned a lot though over the months. He could throw knives now, so that was cool. He had also cleared the entirety off the beach, even though he was probably severely underweight from the lack of nutrition he was getting, but he had serious muscles for an 11-year-old, so that was something at least. He had cleared every speck of trash off the beach. It had been a hellish 10 months. He had been working his part-time job at the cafe, going to school, and training every day. He knew he was insane, but it would be worth it if he could just save even one person. He had also decided that if anyone asked, he would continue with the name Shadow. He'd also gotten his costume ready, if you could call it that. It was cheap, but he liked it. He had saved up and bought a new dark green hoodie which had a large hood so he could hide his messy green curls. He had his black fabric face mask which layer over his face so you could only see his emerald eyes and some freckles. He was just going to use his red high-topped shoes, and he had dark green bottoms which matched his hoodie. Izuku had wanted a voice changer, but barely having enough money for one meal a day made it difficult. Izuku was ready. He was finally going to help people. After all his training, he could do it. He could save others, and Izuku couldn't be more thrilled. He could finally have a purpose. Months later. Aizawa's POV. About 7 months ago, Tsukachi had called him to the station about case that had him involved when it first opened. Shadow is back on our radar. What? That kid who saved that woman nearly a year ago? He was too tired for this. Yes, apparently he has been active again for maybe a month now and has stopped over 50 crimes from taking place. Honestly, he is doing a good job. However, the chief of police has requested we bring him in. So, we need you to capture him, or you could gain his trust or something. I don't really care how you do it, but it needs to happen soon. We should also figure out who his parents are and inform them that their son is doing something so reckless. Aizawa sighed. He hated bringing kids in sheet because they were so young. However, he remembered the trembling boy from all those months ago and he knew he had to help him somehow. Maybe he was just trying to act rebellious against his parents or something? Why do I have to do it? He asked even though he knew he would anyway. Because you were on the case when it opened, and you are good at being sneaky. Maybe you can catch him easily or something? Fine. He mumbled, walking out of his office. That was why right now he was fighting alongside Shadow, taking down a trafficking ring. He had tried capturing the kid on multiple occasions but had always slipped out of his grasp. So he had decided to try get him to trust him. He didn't even know if this was about the case anymore, he just wanted to help the kid. He had begun building some kind of trust after a couple months of just trying to capture him when he discovered it would be impossible. It started out with simple conversations, but Shadow never gave much away. 3 months after Eraserhead was assigned to Shadow's case. Eraserhead was jumping from building to building when he saw Shadow perched on a roof. Shadow flinched when he saw him and was about to run away. Kid, wait. I'm not gonna try take you in. You're too slippery, I couldn't catch you even if I wanted to. He sighed and Shadow looked back at him. Oh really, I'm too fast for the pro hero, Eraserhead. Too bad really. Shadow laughed but Eraserhead could tell he was shaking. Guess you are, kid, he sighed and sat a few meters away from him on the ledge off the roof. Why are you doing this? You seem young, you have potential. Why don't you become a hero? Do your parents know about this? Shadow looked at him. Bold of you to presume I have a family. He laughed nervously. Eraserhead looked at him with concern. Kid, I'm fine, family just let you down anyways. He laughed again, trying to brush it off. So how about you, do you have a family, a partner, kids? You know it's hard to find data on your personal life, you know. He looked at him and he could tell Shadow was smirking under his mask. Why? How? He sighed again. Don't change the subject. You have nobody, seriously? Nope. No one to hold me back from helping others. Well, nice chat, Eraserhead. I appreciate you not trying to catch me again, you know? Now I gotta go save people and do my thing. He then proceeded to backflip off the building. What the F just happened? He has no family? He could have been lying, but I don't know, that seemed real. And he just backflipped off the building. I am too tired for this sheet. He groaned and proceeded to call Tsukachi to tell him about the information he had gotten. That was the first real conversation the two had shared. Over the months, they had met on that same building every Friday, where it became a habit of Aizawa bringing Shadow a snack of some kind after he had picked up on how small his body was. They had also often taken down many illegal operations together and stopped various other acts from being committed. Over the months he had learned more about the kid. The way he would flinch when anyone got near him. He would often make jokes to put himself down. How he apparently couldn't be a hero for some unknown reason. How he clearly didn't have any family or friends to rely on. There were also things he didn't know. He didn't know his quirk. He didn't know his age. His name. Why he was out here. Who he was. Aizawa was determined to find out, but he had to gain more trust in the kid first. The kid was a snarky little sheep most of the time. However, he had noticed when the kid had off days and he would stutter and seemed fearful of everything. He wondered if the whole being a little sheep thing was a mask. Not truly him. He couldn't know, he just hoped the kid would open up to him one day. A few months after their first conversation. Aizawa had seen the kid for a few months now. They had spoken and would stop crimes every other day together. So they had been meeting on a roof of building every Friday so he could check up on the kid. That's where he was going now. Hey kid, he called over to him. Hey did Eraserhead? So the kid was stuttering again today. He made a mental note to himself to remember. How was your week? Oh. Fine, really not much haps happened. How about you? Something was definitely off with the kid. He has wondered what happened. He sighed and rubbed his hands on his face and sat a couple meters away from Shadow in the edge of the building. Aizawa pulled out a small bento box from his carrier bag as he had just been to the supermarket. Do you want it? The kid looked unsure and confused. You just look like you could use a pick-me-up. It's not poisonous, don't worry. You can butts it when you get home or something. He didn't tell the kid at the time, but he had also slipped his phone number in there with a note telling him if anything happens to call him. He had noticed how the kid looked extremely exhausted today and he felt bad. He wanted to help but couldn't do anything without breaking the trust he had built up. The kid's eyes had lit up with him giving the kid the food, but he quickly tried to hide it again. However, it was just a simple bento? He shouldn't be so happy about a bento box. He should be at the park playing with friends or some other shit that kids did. He was so worried about the problem child. "Hey kid." Yeah," he replied. It seemed his stutter had gone after staying with him for a couple minutes. "You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? If you are in any danger, I don't care about prison for you, I'll keep you safe, you got that?" That's when his attitude came back and he was back to, well, whatever normal was for the kid. The next. Eraserhead, it almost seems like you care? But I'm fine, you have bigger things to worry about than a small kid like me. He had a smile which he could see even with his mask on. He wondered if anything he said was true. "Well, thanks for the food. Catch you later, Eraser." He had turned away and the kid left again without a trace. Back to present day in a battle. Izawa had cared for the kid. As much as he hated to admit it. He wanted to keep him safe and make sure we was happy and loved. That's why he was currently fighting off a villain with a mutant-type quirk in some building while Shadow was fighting off the other villains Izawa had erased the quirk of. That's when he heard the scream. Everything had gone silent. He had finally knocked the guy he was fighting unconscious and he ran to where the kid was fighting. Kid. Shadow, where the F dash. Hey, why ye Eraserhead? The kid came out from a corner stumbling backwards, was bleeding severely from his stomach and smiling at him, and he's smiling. "Oh my god, kid." He tried to run towards him to help him, but he jumped back. "Don't, kid. This is no time to care about keeping your secret. I don't care, I won't let them take you in. I can call recovery girl. I know her, she can heal you. You'll be okay, just let me come CLO dash. PP please. Don't. Am I fine?" His words were slurring and he looked like he was going to drop dead any minute. He stumbled backwards and ran out of the open window and went, God knows where. Shadow. Eraserhead had searched all night. He couldn't find him anywhere. He was so tired and he had to find his problem child. He had called Tsukachi and he had a team out looking, but he had to get home. He had to teach in a few hours. He had gotten home to a worried Hizashi sat on the sofa. Shoulda. Hizashi stopped himself when he realized he had slipped up in his quirk and was being extremely loud again. "Oh my god, your patrol ended hours ago, where were you?" He sighed. "It's the kid Zashi. I think he was stabbed, but I didn't see what happened." He ran off bleeding out of his stomach. Hizashi gasped before pulling Shoyuta into his arms and he fell asleep on Hizashi. Izuku's POV. Blood. Lots of blood. Eraserhead. Stitches. That was the majority of what Izuku remembered from the night before. Everything else was foggy. He knew he was fighting someone and Eraserhead was there, but he also gathered that must have been stabbed because he had to stitch his stomach. However, he knows can't go to the hospital. But Izuku knew he has had worse happen to him, so he thought he was just being pathetic. It was currently 4:42 a.m. and Izuku woke up in agony, remembering again he had stitched his stomach. This is bad. This is bad. What am I going to do? Today is not going to be fun. He had school today to top it all off. Izuku had gotten ready for school, trying his best to make sure his stab wound was properly bandaged and clean. It was still slightly bleeding through the stitches, but he couldn't do anything. Izuku just hoped he could go to school and just be invisible today. When he got school, the day started okay. Kaken wasn't at school, so Izuku thought that meant he was safe. But he was wrong. After school, he quickly left, hoping not to draw any attention to himself. However, as he left through the gates, Kaken's goons were waiting for him. "Guys, look. It's Deku, let's show him how useful he can actually be." They grabbed him and pushed him into the alleyway. They kicked him and punched him, but it was okay, until they kicked Izuku in his stomach. "You've got to be kidding me." Izuku slightly coughed up some blood as the three boys laughed and walked away. Izuku didn't know what to do. He couldn't move. He tried and tried to sit up, but it was agony and blood kept trickling out of his mouth. He knew that he couldn't go to a hospital. It would cost him too much and the hospital would get suspicious of why Izuku had no parents. However, he still had Eraserhead's number on the note he gave him. He got his bag and pulled it out. "Shadow, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call me. I can help you if you get in some trouble. Enjoy the bento." Eraserhead. He typed the number into his phone and prepared a message. Shadow. Hey Eraserhead, it's Shadow. I'm sorry for leaving you like that yesterday, but I can't go to the hospital. I'm okay, but I'm stuck in some alley and I can't move. Would you have any free time just to help me up and take me to my place? If not, don't worry, I can't figure it out. Izuku reread the message, unsure of sending it. However, he knew couldn't get help from anyone else. The thing was, what if he removed the mask if I put it on? He would know my hair type and color. He would know where I lived. I'd have to find a new place. The building isn't ideal, but it has held me up for a couple years. He sighed and sent the message with his location. He needed some help right now, and he'd have to trust Eraserhead would help him. As he tried to stand up again, he saw blood coming through his shirt and his eyes started to close. I have to hold on a little longer, damn it. Aizawa's POV. Aizawa was losing it. He didn't know where the kid was, and he could be dead or in some ditch somewhere. Maybe he got help from someone? Maybe he knew someone because the hospital had no stab wound patients from a boy about his age last night, so he hadn't gone there. It was currently 3:52 p.m. in the afternoon when Aizawa got a message. He grunted and walked over to where his phone had pinged on the side in the teacher's lounge at school and saw it was an unknown number. How odd. He clicked on the message and read its contents. Wait, was this actually his kid? Did he actually ask for help? He's in an alleyway about 10 minutes away. Was this him? He didn't seem like the one to ask for help. Damn it, of course it, even if there is a chance it is the kid, he has to go and help him. Luckily school had just ended, so he quickly scribbled Hisashi a note and left it on the side. He had to find the kid. About 9 minutes later, Eraserhead had found he alley from jumping roof to roof. There was kid with big, green, bushy hair laid on the floor with a mask on. He knew it was him. He jumped down to see him with his eyes barely open. Hey Eraserhead, you actually came? His voice was quiet and faint and he coughed. Izuku also sounded shocked that someone had actually come to help him. He grabbed the boy's bag and threw it over his shoulder, then picking up the kid in his arms. There was a lot of blood on his shirt. Kid, you are okay now, you are safe, I'm gonna help you. Please take me to my place. I have some medical stuff there, please. We need to go to a hospital. You're bleeding. No. Please. I see, you can't know who I am, please. His words were slurring and he started to drift into unconsciousness. It sounded like he said they'd take him away? Who were they? Maybe he should take him where he wants and call Recovery Girl? Or maybe he did have the right stuff. CRP, what should I do? Kid, I need you to stay awake. Where's your house? How far is it? It's a couple minutes way. The big old abandoned building near the local coffee shop. He knew exactly where that was. He can't believe he lived there. CRP, this kid. Okay. He ran with Shadow in his arms, unsure of whether to take the mask off or not. The kid had trusted him so much to ask for help, and Aizawa didn't want to betray his trust. So he would hold off for now. He pulled out his phone as he was running and quickly sent Recovery Girl his location. Hopefully she would just come without question. He ran inside the building with Shadow in his arms and saw his belongings. His whole life scattered in front of him. There was no bed, no sofa, no fridge, no oven, bathroom. There was nothing. Shadow had some old blankets and pillows in a corner with a single bag with some clothes and some cans of food and bottled water on the floor. He then saw a bottle of some alcohol on the floor with a small blade next to it. He guessed the alcohol was to help with wounds, but the blade? He looked at the kid with shock and horror in his eyes. He hoped this didn't mean what he thought it meant. He held his problem child close and got an old t-shirt, applying pressure to his womb until Recovery Girl came. Not 2 minutes later, she ran through the old building and started taking care of Shadow. Izuku's POV. Izuku woke up to the noise of muffled voices of a small old lady and a man he presumed was Eraserhead. Damn it, Shoyuta. He could have died. What would you do then? You have to take off his mask. We need to know who this kid is and get him a home, not some old abandoned building. Seriously, Chio. You don't think I want to? The kid has just put some trust in me though. I can't screw this up. I need him to open up to me so I can help him. I hate seeing all this. It's breaking me in two. I don't know how I'd live with myself if I let him die, but I need him to trust me. You DMN idiot Shoyuta. You can't help him if you don't know who he is. You dash. Then suddenly they stopped talking when they saw me, and the small woman looked at me as did Eraserhead. She smiled at him. Sweetheart, I'm surprised you are up. You should be on bed rest for a week at least. That was a serious injury. If I didn't get to you when you did, you could have died. Do you realize that? Izuku nodded my head slightly. Well then, here, have some gummies. They will help with your energy and you can be good as new in no time. She interrupted him. Now, I know this may be hard for you, but we now know where you live and your mask needs to come off. We need to know how to help you get out of this situation, but we can't do anything if we don't know who you are. She finished by smiling at him. Izuku started to walk backwards, heading for the hole in the side of the building. His mind started going a mile a second, thinking if all the ways he can escape the awkward situation. Well, I could tell them everything about my life and about my quirk or lack thereof, and they would instantly send me to an orphanage where everyone would hate me, and it would probably be like school but 24/7, and I can't handle that, and Eraserhead would probably hate me too if he found out the truth that I am quirkless. I could also jump out of the building. It is only 3 stories, so it wouldn't be too bad, but given my condition it could damage myself, but my knife wound seems to be gone, but I'm utterly exhausted. Oh yeah, that's right, that's recovery girl, maybe she healed me, and that's why I'm so tired. That makes sense, but oh my god, what should I do? I can't do anything but give up, but everyone already hates me. I'm so useless. God, how idiotic can I be? Suddenly Izuku couldn't breathe. It was like he was drowning, grasping for air. I need to breathe, damn it. Get off of that, he is a quirkless piece of shit, he doesn't if a affection. You annoying piece of shit. When will you learn you are nothing? Why haven't you killed yourself yet? Oh, did you guys hear? Izuku's quirkless, don't go near him, you might catch it or something. You want to be a hero when you have no quirk still. You are 8 years old. When will you learn you are nothing but a Deku? If you really want a quirk that bad, there might actually be another way. Just take a swan dive off the roof and pray you'll have a quirk in your next life. Suddenly every insult Izuku had even gotten from my father, mother, Kaken, and the kids at school came flooding back to him. Everything was foggy and he could only hear parts of sentences. Chio, leave. You are sending him into a panic dash. Take the mask off him, he can't breathe, he's dash. I know what to do, but I need you to go. Fine. I'll leave, but you need to sort this out, Shoyuta, because otherwise dash. Breathe. I just need you to match my breathing. You have to dash. Izuku tried to listen to Eraserhead and he gradually slowed his breathing. You're doing good, kid. I need you to keep breathing. You're okay. You're safe. I've got you. Eraserhead pulled him towards himself, giving Izuku a hug and calming him down. This is so weird, I haven't had a hug in, well, a long time. I wish someone actually cared about me. He will hate me when he finds out what I am. I'm so sorry. Izuku felt awful, he felt like he was just wasting Eraserhead's time. Tears started to roll down his face. It's okay, it's not your fault, I'm so glad you told me where you were. I was so worried about you. You idiot, do you really think he'll care when he finds out you're quirkless? I should tell him. Rip off that band-aid. Izuku proceeded to pull away from the hug as Eraserhead looked at him smiling. Then, Izuku brung his hand up to his face and pulled off the mask. Aizawa's POV. Chio was such an idiot. Obviously he wouldn't take off his mask, he would just make some snarky comment and probably jump out of the window. At least that's what Aizawa thought. What he didn't expect was the kid to start walking backwards, hyperventilating like he couldn't breathe. Chio, you idiot. Look what you've done. Chio, leave, you're sending him into a panic attack. I can't believe you. It's not my fault, Shoyuta. It had to be said. Just take the mask off him. He can't breathe, he's having a panic attack, so a mask won't help his breathing. Do you think I'm an idiot? But he might get more distressed if we do that. I know what I need to do to help him, I've had my fair share of these. I know what to do, but I need you to go. Fine. I'll leave, but you need to sort this out, Shoyuta, because otherwise the kid will die before you know it, and then it won't matter who he is because he'll be dead. Chio, recovery girl, walked out of the building, leaving a few extra gummies behind and leaving the two of them alone. Then, Aizawa ran over to his kid and tried to help him. So, he slowly put my hand on his shoulder. Kid, I need you to breathe. You can get through this. I just need you to match my breathing. You will be okay. But you have to work with me here. Finally, his breathing slowed and he was getting calmer. You're doing good, kid. I need you to keep breathing. You're okay. You're safe. I've got you. Izawa then held him close and hugged him, reassuring him that he is okay. Izuku then looked at him and quietly whispered, I'm so sorry. Then, silent tears started to roll down his face, stopping at the top of his mask. It's okay, it's not your fault. I'm so glad you told me where you were. I was so worried about you. Izawa then held him closer until Izuku pulled away and Izawa smiled at him. Then, Izuku raised his hands to his face and started to pull his mask away until it revealed a pale boy with freckles that scattered across his face with a singular scar across his left cheek. My real name is Izuku Midoriya. I am 13 years old. My mother and father have both abandoned me because I'm quirkless. He started to cry a lot now, burying his face in his hands, and to say Izawa was shocked was an understatement. My real name is Izuku Midoriya. I am 13 years old. My mother and father have both abandoned me because I'm quirkless. He started to cry a lot now, burying his face in his hands, and to say Shota was shocked was an understatement. Izawa's POV. Izawa was shocked that the kid was quirkless. He thought he would have a speed quirk or some kind of intelligence quirk. He was just so good at analysis and he was so fast. But he didn't care he was quirkless. It made no difference. He looked down at his kid. Yes, his problem child that he would take care of. He doesn't care about the consequences. He loves this kid like he is his own. That's why when he looked down at the boy on the ground crying into his hands, his heart sunk. His kid should be happy. Smiling all the time. Have a loving family. A warm bed. A home. His kid shouldn't be this broken. He had to fix that. He had to help him. He doesn't care about anything else. Hisashi wanted to adopt a kid anyways, but he always thought it would be too dangerous with their jobs, but this is different. He would protect this kid no matter the circumstances. He walked over to his kid and hugged him again, realizing how skinny the boy was made him feel sick, but he would bring it up another time. This day was already probably a lot for him to handle. Suddenly he pushed Izawa away and looked at him with tears pouring from his eyes. What are you doing? He said. Izawa looked at him confused. I'm trying to help you, kid. I don't care that you are quirkless. I'm gonna help you. You won't. I don't care what you say because it's all a lie. Nobody cares about the quirkless. I know you are just saying this to take me to the police and get me arrested. You do care that I'm quirkless. Everyone does. He said in a sad, emotionless voice like he's heard it all before. Izawa hated this. He hated how society must have treated him. He remembers how he was bullied for not having a good enough quirk. A weak quirk. But he knew the quirkless had it worse. If anything, the suicide rate was an indication of that. I'm not lying to you, kid. I honestly couldn't care less that you were quirkless. Your fighting skills are so amazing that you don't even need one. Hell, I basically fight quirkless. I'm not going to lie to you. I will need to take you to the police, but only to close the case and find out more about your file. But you can't even be arrested if I wanted you to be because you don't have a quirk. You can't be arrested. Shadow Izuku looked up at him. Why do you care? Nobody had cared about me for so long. What makes you any different? Izawa got up and walked over to the kid, giving him another hug, allowing him to just cry on him. I don't know why I care about you so much, I just do. You are a truly amazing kid and I do want to help you. Izuku started crying even more at this point, but they just sat there for a while enjoying each other's company. Izuku's POV. Izuku was shocked at the man's reaction to his quirklessness. It was almost too unrealistic. He couldn't really care, could he? He wanted to believe him and everything he said. He did trust him. More than anyone else in his life, however it was just so new to him. He also wondered what will happen now. Would he get sent to an orphanage? Maybe be fostered by someone? Izuku truly didn't know. He would just wait for that conversation when it came to it. Izuku had now stopped crying and wasn't hugging Eraserhead anymore. They just sat there in silence now until he spoke up. Kid, I know a cafe nearby. Is it okay if I take you? We can have some dinner even though it's a bit early and talk for a bit. Why okay, thanks Eraserhead. I'm not on duty, kid, just call me Izawa. Sorry I never told you before, but I guess it just didn't come up. And no, it's okay, by T the WA just CC call me Izuku, I don't like me Midoriya. It's fine kid. Eraserhead Izawa then led us out of the building heading to a cafe. However, it wasn't any cafe. It was a cat cafe. He knew Izawa liked cats but he never thought of him going somewhere like this. Izawa took him inside and the woman looked like she knew him. Welcome back. Would you like your usual table, sir? Oh yeah, thanks. Is your husband not with you today? She looked at Izawa and then him. Wait, what? Husband? I didn't know he was married. They seriously don't have a lot of information on underground heroes in the hero registry, huh? No, Yamada is probably still working. This is Izuku. Okay then, nice to meet you. Come over this way. The lady led them to a small table in the corner with one seat and a bench where there was a ginger cat sat on the bench staring at them. Here's your menu, call me over when you decide what to order. I picked up the cat and put it on the floor stroking it. They both sat down. Izuku looked at the menu but then he realized how expensive everything was. Izawa must have realized and looked up at him. Get anything you want kid, I'm paying and don't worry about how much to spend. I literally have 2 jobs and my husband has 3. You don't have to. I want a kid. He smiled back at Izuku and called the waitress over and they ordered. They sat there in silence for a while until Izawa broke it. So, after this we need to head down to the station. I have a friend on the police, his name is Tsukachi. He can help you, you won't be in trouble. What's going to happen to M.Me? Well, I guess you were staying at that shitty building if I'm not wrong? Weiss, he said under his breath but loud enough for Izawa to hear him. Then suddenly their food came. Okay then, let's eat and hurry over to the station. Izuku tried to eat as much as he could but he only got halfway through before nearly throwing up. I'm sorry. I see can't eat too much before. He trailed off at the end but Izawa got the hint. It's fine kid, don't worry. About 10 minutes later, Izawa paid for the bill and Izuku thanked him several times before they headed down to the police station. Detective Tsukachi's POV. Bet you didn't see that coming he. Tsukachi had been sat at his desk for 2 solid hours trying to figure out who Shadow was for the 3rd time this week and who knows how many time this month. He ran the database for 11, 12, 13 and 14-year-old kids who had speed quirks, intelligence quirks or something that allowed you to slip away easily. He was running out of luck. None of the kids matched the description well enough and those who did lived on the opposite side of Japan or somewhere where it was very unlikely. He sighed, rubbing his face. It was nearly 4 p.m. when his shift ended. We will never find this child, will we? Well, at least that's what he thought. What he didn't expect was that as he was leaving the office, to get a call from Izawa. He looked at it and picked up. Hey Izawa, I'm leaving the office, what's up? Hey Tsukachi, well I think I've just solved your case? What? Which one? Don't tell me. Yeah, I found the kid, he's okay. He's passed out right now and I'm with Recovery Girl while he sleeps. I don't know what will happen when he wakes up but I haven't taken off his mask yet. What? Can you at least tell me what you know? I can work some overtime to figure out who he is and grab some background information. Ugh, fine. He has green hair which seems to be messy and curly. He also is wearing middle school uniform which means he is probably around 13 is my best guess. It also says Aldra middle too, so that probably helps. But he is clearly very malnourished and I'm in what he calls a home, which is that only abandoned block of apartments a few minutes away from the school. Jesus Christ, Izawa, what does Chio have to say about all this? She was annoyed especially when I said I won't take off the mask, but she's still tending to some wounds, but I bet she's gonna come over here and scream at me in a minute, so I've got to go. Right, okay, I'll see what I can do. Text me with any other information you get. Okay, thanks. Talk later, Tsukachi. Yeah, see you later. As the call ended, Tsukachi groaned and walked back into the office to pull up a file on Aldra Middle School. So much for a 5 p.m. bed tonight. After about an hour, Tsukachi had 2 cases on kids at Aldra, but only one of them was the obvious choice. Izuku Midoriya. Age 13. Quirk. Quirkless. Address. Apartment Block 3. Floor 6. Apartment 264. Street XXXXXX. Tokyo, Japan. Contacts. Mother, Inko Midoriya. Phone, XXXXXXXXXXX. Class, 3 to 6. There was also a photo of a kid with big green, bushy hair. He was about the same height and build as Shadow, but there were a few problems with it. One problem was that it said quirkless. That could make sense, but he is just so fast and analytical that not having a quirk would be incredibly difficult, and not to mention suicidal. The other problem was that there was an actual address and phone number for his mother. Maybe it was fake? But they should have checked that, right? Maybe I should call the number? Or do a house visit? It might not even be the... Suddenly phone buzzed. He had a message. Dadzawa, the hobo hot beverage. The kid and I are off to a cafe. I'll try bring him around after we've eaten. Got his name, quirk and age. Izuku Midoriya. Quirkless. Figure out what you can. Tsukachi looked at the message again and his file. It's the same kid. I can't believe he's quirkless. Tsukachi decided to see what he could find in Inko Midoriya, the kid's address on the school records, and what there was on a father. Aizawa's POV. They were walking to the police station and it had been about an hour since he texted Tsukachi. He had also told Zashi that he would be home late because of Shadow and to set up the guest room, just in case things went his way tonight. Izuku was silent the whole trip to the police station. He didn't run, make his shitty, snarky comments. He was just silent. Honestly, it scared Aizawa. After being out on patrols with the kid for nearly a year, he had never been this silent. Even when they had to spy on someone, people, or stay hidden, he still spoke. It set Aizawa off, but now he wished that now he would do that. It was frustrating. As they stood outside the station, he looked down at his kid. His hands were trembling and he couldn't stop shaking, so Aizawa lowered himself to the kid's level. You are okay, kid. Nobody is going to hurt you or arrest you in here. We just need to know more about you and we need to figure out an action plan for your future, yeah? Izuku nodded slightly. He put his hand on the greenette's shoulder and they walked in. As they walked in, people kept giving him looks like he was some homeless dude. He was used to it and he couldn't blame them, he always looked like a mess. But with a kid beside him, he got some very strange looks. Finally, they got to Tsukachi's office and Aizawa walked them in. Aizawa. Hey, how you doing? And this must be the infamous Shadow. I gotta say, kid, you really did help the force a lot out there. You are also really slippery too. I'm surprised you are only 13. Well, anyways, come have a seat and we can begin the questions. Aizawa sighed and sat down as his problem child sat down next to him, putting his hand in his neck and rubbing it sheepishly. I looked over at Tsukachi. Hey Tsukachi? I told the kid he can't be arrested because he is quirkless. That's true, right? He technically hadn't broken the law. That's true. But first we need to ask him some questions to confirm that that is indeed the case. He smiled over at me and I rolled my eyes. They hadn't told Izuku what Tsukachi's quirk was, so they would have to see if he was lying about anything. Hopefully he wasn't, but they did have to know. He then looked at Izuku. Well then, is it okay if we get started? Tsukachi asked. Izuku nodded. Finally Aizawa would get some answers. Izuku's POV. Izuku was internally freaking out. CRP questions? What kind of questions? Oh dear God, I wish I never did this. I can just lie at the worst. I needed that help though, or I would probably be dead, so I guess I have to do this. Ugh, I just wish I was never stabbed. Izuku looked at them both, quite obviously scared, as he had been playing with the ends of his oversized hoodie. Tsukachi looked at him with a warm smile. It's okay, kid. If you really don't want to answer a question, you don't have to, but I advise you do so we can best help you. Izuku opened his mouth to talk, but nothing came out and he closed it again. Tsukachi opened a file and looked over it before closing it and looking at Izuku. Aizawa looked at him, offering a smile. Tsukachi's POV. BTW. The italics in this part are often Izuku's answers to the questions Tsukachi asks. Also the bold is Tsukachi's quirk. Tsukachi started with the questions. So then, please can you state your full name? Izuku M. Midoriya. Good. Next, please can you tell us your birthday, age, and the current school you are attending? It's January 4th, I'm 13 and I go to Aldra and Middle S. School. Please can you tell us your parents' names? Izuku flinched at the question and he looked at the two of them, uncertain, before he continued. Inko mi Midoriya anh. Hisashi Midoriya. Tsukachi looked at him for a minute and remembered how he couldn't find anything on Midoriya having a father, so that was important information for Tsukachi, so he wrote it down and looked back at Midoriya. Do you have any other family that you are aware of or that know about you that you know about? And no, B, but I remember HHMT talking about H's B brother once and how HGD didn't like anything D dirty, but I was only like 3. Tsukachi thought that was odd but kept asking questions. Is that the only thing you are aware of about your uncle? Why yes, he and never brung him up again as far as I can remember. Thank you Midoriya, now please can you tell me what your quirk is? Oh I am QQ quirkless? Tsukachi looked at him again. He was shocked by the answer even if he already knew it. Yes okay, well I've asked most of the easy ones, however, Aizawa has told me a little bit about your situation. So, I need to ask some questions that ideally need an answer so we can help you, okay? Tsukachi have a warm smile. I'll try. Great then. Thank you for your cooperation Midoriya. Well then let me start off. When was the last time you saw your father? Midoriya looked at him as his hand started to slightly shake, and Tsukachi looked at him and then at Aizawa, and Aizawa gave him a look but he couldn't tell what it meant. I was F.F4. It was the D-Day IG got my Q, quirk R results. Okay, what happened the last time you saw him? Did you do anything and do you know why he left? Izuku looked up at him with tears threatening to fall from his eyes. He left because I was a quirkless. But I can't tell you what happened the last time I saw him. I don't remember. But why can't you tell me? It's okay if you don't want to, but I think you can remember. I just can't, okay? Aizawa looked over at Tsukachi again and gave him a nod, and Tsukachi sighed before dropping the subject. Tsukachi then proceeded to move on. Okay, I understand. I now need to ask some separate questions about your father. Is that okay? Midoriya nodded slightly. You could now physically see his body violently shaking as Aizawa placed his hand on his shoulder. Okay, these are simple yes or no questions. Please answer verbally. Oi, but has your father ever physically abused your mother? No, but has your father ever emotionally abused you? No, but has your father ever abused your mother in these ways? No, but Tsukachi knew Midoriya's lying was getting better as the questions kept coming. When he lied he didn't stutter as much, but it didn't matter with his quirk. Okay, now we need to ask you some questions about your mother. When was the last time you saw her? Midoriya looked like that question had physically hurt him, but he responded. Just before T turned 11. Okay, I need to ask you the same questions about your mother that I did your father, is that okay? Sure. Okay, did your mother ever physically abuse you? No. But did your mother ever emotionally abuse you? No. But why did your mother leave? Why do you think? I'm Q quirkless? Tsukachi sighed. He had asked all the important questions that were required. He knew that the kid would be put in the foster system. He rubbed his face and looked at him. He had been abused and he was alone, and putting him in the system might break him. He had no idea what to do. Izuku's POV. Izuku had just finished answering the questions and he has so drained. He felt bad for lying to the police obviously, but they wouldn't find out. Also, he didn't want to risk them arresting his mom or anything stupid for him being quirkless. Not like they'd care anyway. He thought to himself. Detective Tsukachi had just momentarily left the room. Aizawa. Izuku no doubt thought now the police knew he was quirkless he would probably be thrown into the system. Of course you will be out in the system, nobody cares about the quirkless. You thought Aizawa didn't care, of course he does. If your parents didn't want you, nobody will. You should just leave. Maybe you should kill yourself? Nobody will care. Seriously, nobody. Suddenly he started to feel his cheeks getting wet. Great, I'm a crybaby too. He put his head in his hands or silently cried. Aizawa's POV. After they questioned Izuku, Tsukachi looked over at Aizawa and back at Izuku. Hey Midoriya, me and Aizawa need to discuss a few things, but can you just sit here and wait for us? He nodded and Aizawa and Tsukachi walked out of the room. Aizawa impatiently questioned Tsukachi. So, did he lie at all? Tsukachi sighed. He lied about a few things. His mom and dad have abused him physically and psychologically. His must have also abused his mom too, and he lied about remembering what happened on the day his dad left. This kid is going to get put in the system, Shoyuta. There's nothing I can do, but the system could break him. I didn't expect him to be so broken. Yeah, I get it. I can see it too. It's like when he's in the mask, he pretends to be someone else. This is the real Shadow. Look, I can't let this kid go into the system either. That's why I'm taking him home. He can live with me and Hisashi. I'm sure he won't care, and if he does then he can leave because I'm not letting that kid get hurt ever again. Wait, Shoyuta. You want to adopt him? Yes. Wow, okay. I think it's possible because, well, I didn't want to say anything earlier, but there is no record of his father anywhere, but now I have a name I could find something, but, well, Inko Midoriya has been wiped from all records. She is only listed as his mother and it has a fake number for school contacts. I can't find anything on her. Sheet. Do you mean she has erased herself from existence? Pretty much, yeah. Well, it will take a few days to process Izuku's status and then to process your adoption. You do have an emergency foster license though, right? Yeah, I can use that. I'll text Hisashi now and let him know what's happening. Okay, but what do we do about his past abuse? CRP, I don't know. If Inko and Hisashi are completely gone, then we can't make them pay. He also doesn't know your quirk? That's true. Shall we tell him my quirk and that we know? Yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, let's go see him. As they walked back to the room, Aizawa texted Hisashi. Message to Loud Bird. Hey Zashi, look, remember Shadow? Well, I've found him and let's just say it isn't pretty. He is homeless and his parents abandoned him. He is quirkless, but that doesn't matter. I'm bringing him home and we will adopt him. I need to protect my kid. He put his phone away and walked back into the room with Tsukachi. When they both walked back into the room, Izuku jumped. He quickly hid his face and started wiping it. Aizawa could tell he had been crying. They both sat down and Tsukachi decided to start the conversation. So we have been talking about what to do. And I decided to tell you my quirk. Well, it's called lie detector. I know whenever somebody is lying to me, almost like someone is in my head telling me either truth or lie. Izuku's POV. Sheet. He knows I lied. Oh my effing god. I can't believe it. Out if anyone to question me? What do? I'm such an idiot, I should have just bled out earlier and not asked for help. But Izuku was cut off from his thoughts by Tsukachi interrupting him. It's okay, kid, we understand you must have gone through a lot, but we can't find anything on your parents, so we can't actually do anything. I'm so sorry. Izuku looked at him again, unable to speak for a moment, completely shocked, until Tsukachi spoke again. Look, in these situations we would often send you to Dash. You're sending me to an orphanage, aren't you? He interrupted Tsukachi. You just want to get rid of I understand. I'm quirkless, you don't want to be anywhere near me. Izuku stood up and looked like he was about to leave until Aizawa grabbed his hand. Sit back down, problem child. We don't want to get rid of you because you are quirkless. If you listen to what we say, you might understand that you are not going to be put in the system. What? You're not sending me there? Then what dash? Well, would you want to come home with me? Me and my husband would love to bring you home and you can live with us. What? You're lying. I don't you understand? Izuku was confused. Live with them? What, like at their home? Why would he want to do that? I'm quirkless, seriously, what part of that do they not understand? I'm not lying. We have been meeting with each other for ages now and your real identity doesn't change a thing. I want you to come home with me. I can help you. I promise you'll be safe. I wait, about why your husband? I see can't put you two out like that. Why do you want me? Kid, you are amazing. Why wouldn't I want you? Izuku broke down onto the floor crying again and Aizawa pulled him off the floor and pulled him into a hug before he could refuse, whispering into his ear. You are safe. I've got you. Izuku hugged back. Thank you. As they pulled away from the hug, Tsukachi was beaming. I'm so glad you two have worked something out. Aizawa, I'll get in touch with the paperwork in a few days, and if you ever need anything let me know. Will do, Tsukachi, thank you. Aizawa said. Izuku was just so tired and still processing what happened. Come on, problem child, let's quickly head over to the building to grab your stuff and then we can head home. They both headed out of the station in silence, walking towards his building. Izuku didn't really know what to do. He had just accepted living in a house with pro-hero and whoever his husband was. He was scared but excited even if he didn't want to admit that. I can't believe I'm seriously going through with this. Finally, they arrived and Izuku ran ahead of Aizawa, quickly grabbing a bag and putting his stuff in. He only had a few things he needed. He grabbed the few pieces of clothes he had, a couple blankets, his toothbrush and toothpaste, the little money he actually had, his notebooks and finally his blades. He had his blades for when he felt terrible. Like he wasn't worth anything. Often when he felt like ending it all, but he had to help protect all the people he can, and it would be selfish to end it when there are so many people who do need help. So, he cut instead. He also had some alcohol for disinfecting the wounds, and honestly sometimes he drank a bit when it got really bad because sometimes it would help him fall asleep, being the insomniac he is. However, he decided to leave that because he didn't strictly need it and there wasn't much left. Finally Aizawa had gotten up to him and luckily he had already packed and was ready to go. "Why, you don't need to come up to see me." "Guess not, let's go kid," I called a taxi. "And is that all you have? Just a rucksack?" "Ugh, why I didn't need much." He slightly laughed nervously and rubbed the back of his neck, and Aizawa gave him a what looked like a sad smile, and they headed downstairs together and finally got in the taxi. Before he knew it, Izuku was stood outside the door to the apartment of Eraserhead. It was a small apartment block in a nice area of the city. It looked pretty expensive considering he was an underground hero. Izuku wondered what his husband did. Aizawa unlocked the door. "So kid, this is my apartment. I should probably let you know my husband dash." "Shoulda." Aizawa's hair flew up in the air again, and his eyes were glowing. "Zashi, keep it down. We don't want another noise complaint." He deactivated his quirk and closed the door behind them. Izuku stood there for a minute looking at Aizawa's husband. He looked familiar. Aizawa sighed and Hizashi looked at them both. "Sorry Shoyuda. I was just excited is all. You must be the little listener. Sho has told me all about you. I'm so glad to finally meet you and I'm thrilled you are staying here. I'm Yamada Hizashi, but you can call me either for now, that's okay. I should probably let you know as well, I'm also Hero. My hero name is Present Mike." Holy shit. Aizawa is married to Present freaking Mike. They are the complete opposites, perfect if you think about it, but still. When I hacked in online I couldn't find any relationships Eraserhead or Present Mike had, so it must be a secret. Oh wow, I can't believe you're Aizawa's husband. Midoriya Izuku, but please Jay just call me Izuku. That's great little listener. And yeah I am. We've been married since we turned 20. So 7 years now. We decided to do it quickly since we both were taking the hero route, you know. We didn't want to waste time. But our relationship is only known by a few people like Midnight, the hero, the principal of Yue, Nedzu, and a few other heroes. Wow, I didn't expect this. Are really, you are both so different? Aizawa then looked down at Izuku and spoke. Yeah, we are a weird combination for a couple, I guess. I wish he was quiet though, then life would be better. He sighed. Hey, show you to no fair. You love me really? Guess I do. Well, come on kid, I'll show you around. Oh. Izuku took his shoes off and they walked further into the apartment. As you entered, Aizawa showed him around. It was a nice cozy, mainly open-plan apartment with a large living room to the back left of the room with a large flat-screen TV. Then to the front left there was the kitchen, which had a breakfast bar with stools along it. To the right of the kitchen, the dining room was connected to the kitchen but hidden from view from the living room. Then on the right side of when you walked in there was a hallway which Aizawa and Yamada were leading him down. First door on the left is a bathroom, the second door on the left is mine and Zashi's room. The second door on the right is my office and the first door on the right is your room. He opened the door and there was a single bed with black bedding on it and 2 pillows. Next to it was a small side table and next to the door was a very large wardrobe, and in the top left corner of the room there was a desk. There was also a large window which was above the bed and another other one on the other side of the same wall. Oh wow, it's lovely TT, thank you. Oh. Worries problem child. I know today has been tiring and probably really draining, so we understand if you need some sleep. However, we will need to talk about a few things in the morning regarding school and other aspects of your life we need to know about. But try rest up, kiddo. Yeah, little listener. You should get some sleep. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you be both. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I don't know how to repay you. Kid, repay us by looking after yourself. Get some sleep, we can talk tomorrow. Okay, thanks G, good night then. Good night, problem child. Good night, little listener. They closed the door and Izuku got changed into his baggy black shirt and a pair of green 3/4 length pajama shorts. They were his only clean clothes at the minute. Izuku was so grateful for their kindness and was shocked at how nice they had been. He got into the bed and let himself sink into the mattress. He quickly drifted off to sleep, which is something that had come hard to him over the last few years. But this was different. For the first time since he was 4, Izuku felt safe. He got into the bed and let himself sink into the mattress. He quickly drifted off to sleep, which is something that had come hard to him over the last few years. But this was different. For the first time since he was 4, Izuku felt safe. Izuku woke up to the smell of bacon. Wait, what? Where am I? Suddenly the memories of yesterday hit him like a bag of bricks. Izuku sat up in the bed, letting out a slight groan as he looked at the clock next to him. It was 10:38 a.m. I actually slept? For that long? I can't believe it. After about 5 minutes later, he threw on a hoodie so nobody could see his arms, and he got out of bed and opened his door to see Yamada dancing to a song as he flipped bacon in the pan, and Aizawa sat at the small oak table in the corner drinking what was probably coffee with his hair tied back in a loose bun. Zashi, the kid is up. Little listener. Please come take a seat at the table. I'm making bacon sandwiches. Hope that's okay. Wyatt, thank why. No problem. Zashi. It's too early, be quiet. Sorry, show. Izuku sat down at the table, awkwardly unsure of what to say. What do I do? They said they wanted to talk today? What does that mean? Oh god, I almost forgot. Yamada is making food, what do I do? I can't eat a lot yet. My stomach is still processing all the food from the cat cafe. Oh Sirpy, I feel awful. I shouldn't be so worried about what they think. I'll probably be kicked to the curb by the end of that day. Izuku let out a sigh, and little to Izuku's knowledge Aizawa was just sat there studying Izuku's actions. What's wrong, problem child? Anything I can help with? No. Is that a question or an answer? Why yes. Aizawa sighed and Yamada came over with breakfast. Yamada places 2 large bacon sandwiches in front of Izuku. There you go. I know it's not a traditional breakfast, but when I went to America they had these everywhere. Personally, I love American food. If you don't like it though, I can make you something else. And no, it's great, thank you. He tried to give them a smile. All 3 of them were eating in silence. It was very uncomfortable silence, like they all had something to say but they were scared to talk. After Izuku had gotten halfway through his first sandwich, he started to feel sick when Aizawa spoke up. So, kid, all 3 of us need to have a talk about what is going to happen moving forward. We also need to have some other discussions which might be hard for you. However, we need you to talk to us. Got that, problem child? Why? So why don't you start? Start, W? Your life story, kid. What happened to you? Obviously we know something that has happened due to Tsukachi's quirk, but we need to know exactly what happened. But it's okay, little listener, if you don't want to tell us everything, it's okay. But we are here to help you and we want you to talk to us. Izuku sat there staring at them with a blank expression on his face. Talk to them? But they shouldn't care. Why? Izuku didn't stutter. Because we dash. Bullshit. I don't know why you care, haven't you heard anything I've told you? I'm quirkless, useless. Why? I just don't understand. Izuku was once again on the floor crying. He was just so confused. Why did everyone hate me? Now apparently these 2 think they don't? What's happening? Aizawa's POV. Aizawa was at a loss. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what kind of hell this kid has been through. He has to make him feel better, he has to try. Everyone must have told him he was nothing. He thought to himself, and then he thought, I'm going to kill every last son of a bitch who ever dared to hurt my kid. He looked over at Yamada, who looked back at him, indicating to go over there and hug him. So he did just that. He jumped out of his seat and held his child on the floor where he was sobbing. He could feel his heart break for him. He loved this kid so much. He just let him cry onto him even as he helped him up and moved him to the sofa where Hisashi was going to join them. Finally, they had all made it to the sofa with Izuku sandwiched between Hisashi and Aizawa where silently, tears rolled down his face. Aizawa just watched rubbing the kid's back while his breathing slowed and he stopped crying. He was then shocked by what had come out of his mouth next. I was a happy kid. My parents did love me. I did have a normal life. It was great. We would go to the park. We would go to fairs, stay up late and watch hero documentaries. I played dress up with my All Might onesie and pretended to save my parents. That's about all I can remember. I was 4 after all. A couple months after I turned 4, my parents were concerned my quirk hadn't come in yet, so they took me to the doctor. That was when I learned the truth. I was quirkless. My father was horrified. He took me home and on the way back he called me awful things and said he wasn't my father anymore. When he told my she was disgusted too. She couldn't believe she had been a quirkless child. That's when Hisashi, my dad got violent. I don't remember much but they told me to go to my room and my mother screamed when I saw her. She was nearly dead on the floor. Then all I remember was intense pain and it went black. At the hospital 2 days later, I woke up. I had 2 broken bones I think and a large burn across my stomach. Izuku had lifted his shirt for Aizawa and Hisashi to see. The scar had faded but you could see where it had been. There was also an alarming amount of other cuts that had littered his stomach along with all the ones on his legs he had noticed, but he hadn't seen anywhere else yet. He was honestly horrified at what he had just heard and he only wishes he could have helped him sooner. However, this was just the start of it. He had a feeling it was going to get much worse. Time skip brought to you by a lazy author. They had been sat there for 2 hours. 2 hours. By the end of it, Aizawa was ready to rip someone's head off. He was furious. Izuku had just sat there and told him and Yamada about some of the worst moments in his life. Aizawa knew there was probably more but he was surprised about the amount he had actually told them. If this isn't it all, then what else is he hiding? He mentally thought to himself. Izuku had told them the horrors of his childhood and what his mother had done to him. How she once beat him so bad he couldn't move from that one spot for 2 days. How she had actually stabbed him on multiple occasions but the worst one being when she stabbed down into his thigh. Where he still had a large purple line they traced about 5 centimeters across the middle of his left thigh. How she had thrown her bottles of alcohol at his head when he got home from school. How she would refuse to feed him and left him to fend for himself most of the time. How she would kick him in the stomach so hard he would vomit and vomit blood. How even when she left him, all she left was barely enough money to cover a week of food. How he then knew nobody liked the quirkless so he could never be a hero and decided to be a vigilante. How he actually found his shitty building he lived in and how he trained for months on end to prepare for being a vigilante. And finally, how he met Aizawa. By the end of it, Izuku couldn't keep going. He saw how drained his kid was and that's why he currently has his head resting on Hisashi's lap while he played with his hair and how he was curled up into a tight ball. He needed to tell Tsukachi about this and urge him to find Inko and Hisashi Midoriya because Shoyuta needs to make them pay soon. So, he got up from the sofa kissing his traumatized husband on the cheek and making the call. This was one call he wasn't looking forward to. Hisashi's POV. Hisashi was completely and utterly shocked. My little listener suffered all this time and didn't tell anyone? He was so glad Shoyuta had brung him home. He would make Izuku have a childhood he deserved and help him through everything. This may had only been the second day he had met him but he already wanted to protect the kid with his life. He ran his fingers through Izuku's untamed hair and kissed his sleeping forehead. Sleep well Izuku, it will be better now. I promise. Aizawa's POV. Aizawa was so tired and quite frankly horrified at the realization that Izuku was abused more than he could ever if possibly thought. He is such a good kid. I can't believe this isn't even all of it. He sighed and picked up his phone and dialed a number on his phone. Hey Tsukachi, is that you? Shoyuta. It sure as hell is. You okay? Did something happen with the kid? Yeah actually. Well, is he okay? Far from it really. He sighed, unsure how he could go about the conversation. Well, the kid has told us a bit about what happened. He did? Already? Yeah. Well, as we know, his parents abused him, but it's bad, Tsukachi. Sheet. There was a pause in conversation before Tsukachi spoke again. Do you think he'd be willing to tell us anything about what happened? No, look. He was talking for 2 hours, Tsukachi. He was a crying, stuttering mess, and he had about 5 panic attacks during the whole ordeal. He sighed before talking again. I don't think it's everything. But he has been through some shit, Tsukachi. This kid isn't the shadow I met on the rooftops. He's the opposite, actually. He must have just been putting on a brave face, trying not to show any of his real emotions. I already thought this, but now I know it's true. Sheet. Shoyuta, what are you gonna do? I'm trying to process the adoption papers, so hopefully I can get them through, but I don't know what will happen. Yeah, I get it, Tsukachi. But I'm gonna protect him. I'll help him. But I'm just worried. Have you got anything on parents yet? No, everything is gone. I'm trying to find someone else registered with similar characteristics as Inko Midoriya, however I don't think we can get anything on a father. Right? Let me know what happens, okay? Yeah, I will. Good luck, Shoyuta, and if the kid can talk to us, then it will make his case stronger, and when we do find his parents, we can take them down. Sure, we'll do, Tsukachi. Until next time. Bye, Shoyuta. Aizawa hung up the phone as a pale-looking Hisashi walked into the kitchen. Hisashi's POV, while Aizawa was on the phone. Hisashi looked down at the sleeping kid and sighed. He didn't know how to help, but he had to. He heard Shoyuta on the phone and he decided to wait until he was done to talk to him. So, a few minutes later when the call needed, Hisashi carefully maneuvered Izuku's head off his legs and placed a pillow under his neck. He then walked to the kitchen. Osho. The kid, I can't believe the listener has been through all that. A tear fell from his face as he practically jumped into Shuta's arms. Shoyuta hugged him back and looked at him. I know, Zashi, I don't know how we help him yet, but we will. So we are definitely adopting him then, Sho? Of course we are. I'm worried about being a good role model. But he became my problem child the second met. However, he always slipped away. But this time I won't let him. Hisashi sniffled and looked at his husband. Asho. You do care. I'm so happy. Yeah. But what do we do? I mean, we need to take him shopping, don't we? For like clothes and whatever kids need. Of course we do, Shoyuta. Let's see how the listener is when he's awake and maybe talk to him about everything going forward, okay? Okay. But parenting is a big deal, and a kid that's been through that, it's bound to mess him up. From what I'm concluded, he is probably being bullied at his school too. Remember when I was younger and everyone said my quirk was weak and villainous? Yeah. Sho, where are you going with this? I think that's been happening to him. I don't know, but we should figure something out, and soon. I want him to be happy. Hisashi leaped forward and hugged Shoyuta again. Of course. We will be the best DMN parents out there, Sho. We will make our kid happy. Our kid? Yeah, I guess he is now. Shoyuta smiled and kissed Hisashi. Should we wake up the little listener? Probably. I guess he might not sleep tonight if he naps now. Asho. You are already being a dad. Zashi, calm down. Shoyuta rolled his eyes. They both walked back into the living room together to go and wake up Izuku. However, he was already awake with a blank expression on his face. Izuku's POV. Nightmare flashback. And mommy, is daddy gone forever? Shut up, Izuku. But mommy, I'm scared. What if he hurts you again? Is it because I'm quirkless? Izuku, shut up. Inko stood up and looked at her son dead in his eyes. You know it's your fault, don't you, Izuku? Your daddy left because you are useless. You don't have a quirk, so you aren't important anymore. But mommy, why? It doesn't change. I can be the first quirkless hero. Izuku jumped in the air imitating All Might when Inko had enough. She walked over to him and slapped him across the face. And mommy W dash. He was cut off with Inko beating him senselessly. I'm not your mom. She walked away and Izuku laid on the floor crying until he passed out. He was only 4. Izuku shot up from the sofa grasping for air. Haven't had that one in a while. He thought while trying to hold back tears. He then cliched his chest and remembered everything that happened not an hour ago. Oh shit, I told them. Well, I told them part of it. He sighed. What do I do now? Oh, CRP. I fell asleep on Yamada. Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. I bet he hates me now or thinks I'm weird. What did Aizawa actually mean when he said come back to their place? Did he want to actually take me in? No, he couldn't. But I don't know. It would be nice to not be homeless. Izuku started at the floor, unsure of what would happen next. Suddenly, Yamada started talking. Hey little listener. I didn't realize you woke up. Oh, yeah, about 10 minutes ago. Izuku nervously rubbed the back of his neck. Hey problem child, we need to talk about everything. We appreciate you telling us what you have, really. You don't have to tell us anymore right now if you don't want, but we do need to talk. Yeah look, I'm sorry for telling you all that. I understand if you don't want me here anymore, I can just go dash. Calm down problem child, you aren't going anywhere. Why dash? Yamada and Aizawa sat down on the sofa beside Izuku, once again sandwiching him between them. Izuku just sunk backwards into the sofa. Well little listener, we have been talking and Aizawa sighed. Geez Zashi, the one time you actually need to speak, you are at a loss for words. Look Izuku, we want you to live with us. We have Tsukachi processing some adoption papers. What? Why? Because little listener, we want to help you through everything. We want you to be part of the family. Zashi BF quiet. The neighbors. Sorry show. Izuku sat there frozen. He didn't know what to say or do. Silent tears just once again streamed down his face with his jaw slightly dropped. Yamada and Aizawa looked at him. Aizawa spoke first. Hey kid, what's happening? We need you to talk to us. Yeah little listener, it's okay, you don't have to stay if you don't want. And no Izuku held his head down and was crying. I want you to adopt me. I want a family. I don't know if that's selfish or wrong, but I want a nice family. Izuku had completely broken down at this point, crying into his hands. Aizawa and Yamada both shared a sad glance and then placed their hands on Izuku's shoulders. Problem child, it's not wrong nor is it selfish to want a family. You deserve a family. That's why we want to help you. We want to make you feel welcomed and happy. Yeah little listener. We really want you to stay with us. Yamada then started to cry happy tears too. That then led to them all falling into a large hug whilst Izuku and Yamada calmed down crying, and Shoyuta held back tears. Izuku was happy for the first time in years. Time skip brought to you by the Doritos that just fell off my bed and all now over my carpet, smiley face. A couple hours later, they had finished talking about most of the technicalities and Yamada and Aizawa had spoken to Izuku their job at UA as teachers and asked Izuku if he wanted to be a hero. He said yes. So, they told Izuku they would train him. Help him become the world's first quirkless hero. With Aizawa as Izuku's mentor, hopefully he could achieve his dream. They had also spoken about school. They asked him how it was and if he was bullied. Izuku lied. He told them it was fine. However, Aizawa and Yamada picked up on the fact his stuttering got really bad and he flinched at the word bullying, so they decided to figure that out later. It had been nearing 6 p.m., and after the long day they had all had, they decided to order some takeaway. Izuku told them he hadn't actually had one in a while, so Yamada made it his personal duty to get Izuku every type of takeaway by the end of the month. Yamada had also discovered that Izuku hadn't watched a Disney movie since he was 4 and he didn't even remember what it was. So, they had decided to start watching them all starting tonight. They had also concluded that they would go shopping the next day to get Izuku some stiff for his room, some clothes and essentials despite his protests. So, that is how they were now all squashed together on the sofa with a slice of pizza in each hand watching Frozen, which Yamada insisted was the best Disney film. However, Izuku was confused. I was wondering, what is it little listener? How do they already know the lyrics to all the songs when they do burst out into song? Aizawa choked on his pizza and burst out into laughter. See Zashi. I told you that these films were stupid. Hey shoulda. Don't question it. Guys? Yamada looked at Izuku. Look Izuku, they just know them, ya dig? Elsa is the Snow Queen and she is just amazing, so that's why she knows all the lyrics. He said excitedly. What about her sister? And that snowman did too. Aizawa and Izuku looked at each other and then Yamada, and the shock in Yamada's face was enough to make them both laugh. Maybe I'll be okay. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. Izuku looked at his two new parents and smiled, tucking back into his pizza. Izuku's POV, Izuku having a nightmare. Deku. Hey you BC. Oh, Hi KACs I mean Bakugu. I told you to stop calling me that. You were never my friend. Sorry. Bakugu flew a huge blast of fire at Izuku. Izuku fell backwards. Bakugu. Please why you doing this? Stupid nerd. Can't even speak right without your goddamn stuttering. God, I can't believe you're not dead yet. This is because you're a quirkless BSUD. Bakugo walked over to Izuku and started punching him. You are just a demon bug. Please, stop. Aizawa's POV. Aizawa and Hisashi were sitting in bed cuddled next to each other asleep when they heard something. Please, stop. Hisashi, did you hear that? Yeah, it sounded like it came from the listener's room. Come on. They got out of bed and made it over to Izuku's room. When they got there they saw Izuku sweating and gripping hold of the sides of the bed in his sleep. Zashi, I think he's having a nightmare. What do? We have to wake him up, you idiot. Alright, okay. Aizawa walked over to Izuku and started trying to wake him up. Come on kid, we need you to wake up. It's just a nightmare, wake up. Izuku shot up breathing and then started to cry. Aizawa pulled him close into a hug. Hey kiddo, you're okay? I've got you. You're safe, nobody can hurt you here. Aizawa? Yeah, it's me kid. I've got you. Izuku grabbed into Aizawa's shirt and cried into it. Aizawa's heart sunk. He felt terrible for the kid. He then looked over at Hisashi who was starting to tear up and Aizawa flashed him a sad smile. About 10 minutes of comforting Izuku he started to calm down, so Aizawa spoke. Hey kid, you feeling better? He nodded his head. So, can you tell us what happened? Izuku flinched at the question and turned his head away. Kid, if you don't tell us we can't help you, and before you start sprouting some bullshit that you don't need help, you do. And we want to help you. So please talk to us. Izuku looked at them both with tears threatening to fall from his eyes once again. It was just about something that happened at SS school. Aizawa gave Hisashi a worried glance. Aizawa had suspected that he had a hard time at school, but to be having nightmares over it? Aizawa was concerned. Izuku could see Aizawa's concern and spoke again. But it's not that bad. I promise. I'm just overreacting. You don't need to worry about me. He got quiet towards the end but Hisashi and Aizawa still heard. Hisashi decided he should speak up. Hey look, Izuku, I may not have known you that long yet, but we do worry about you. We can't help it. We want you to talk to us. Please. You can trust us, we can help you. You can't help. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. But please just drop it. It's nearing to midnight, why you should go back to sleep? Aizawa and Hisashi didn't know what to do. They were once again at a loss with Izuku. They had no clue how to help him right now in this state. As much as they couldn't help him right now when he needed it. So, Aizawa gave Izuku one last look before giving in to his wishes. You sure kid? We don't mind, I can barely sleep most nights. Anyways, because of my insomnia. Please, we just want to help you. I'm fine. Why you guys go? I'll go back to sleep. You said we were going shopping tomorrow anyways, so I should sleep. I'm so sorry for disturbing you. Aizawa sighed and ruffled Izuku's hair. It's okay problem child, we don't mind. If you need anything come get us, okay? Yeah little listener, come get us for anything. We are always here for you. Thanks guys, good night. Good night kiddo. Hisashi and Aizawa walked out of the room and closed the door behind them and headed back to their room, and Hisashi looked at Aizawa. Do you think he'll be okay, Sho? He cried on you for 10 whole minutes. It must have been a bad nightmare. I know Zashi. I just don't know what to do. Let's just get some sleep. We are going out tomorrow like Izuku said. He should be fine now, but we can try to press the subject again tomorrow. You're right, Shoyuta. He'll be okay for the rest of the night. They didn't know how wrong they were. Izuku's POV, after Aizawa and Yamada left. CRP, that was a close one. Oh my god, I can't believe they heard me. And I cried on Aizawa again. Why can't I even sleep normally? I want to be normal. Is that too much to ask? Why can't I have a quirk? Damn it, Kaken was right. Why aren't I dead yet? I can't think like that. Izawa said he would train me, damn it. I can prove them all wrong. I can become a hero. Can't I? He said he'd help me get into UA, but the acceptance rate is less than 2%. I can't take it. Everything is changing so much. I don't know if it's good or bad. Oh my god, what's happening? Can they really help me? They seem like they care, but do they? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Izuku was so confused by everything still. He got out of bed and walked over to his bag of stuff from the building he lived in and dug around inside for something until he found it. He pulled it out and walked over to his bed with it in his trembling hands and then sat on his bed staring at it. His blade. Even a small piece of metal has helped Izuku more than most people in his life. So, he kept it even when he came to live with Izawa and Yamada. He didn't want to disappoint them though or make them worry, so he wouldn't tell them. He started at the blade for a while contemplating what to do. Finally, he raised it to his wrist and his right hand was holding the blade hovering over his wrist. His hand was shaking. I've never thought about it this much before. I should just do it. So why can't I? Damn it, Izuku, just do it. He finally dropped the blade from his hand and looked at it on the floor. I will just, not right now. I can't. Subconsciously Izuku knew why he didn't do it. He didn't need to. His life was finally turning around for the better. Izuku then lauded in bed once again thinking about how eventful the last 3 days had been. This was only his second night living at Yamada and Aizawa's, but he was grateful for everything they had already done for him directly and indirectly. The next day came quickly. However, with the lack of sleep Izuku had gotten, he was exhausted. So, when he finally heard Aizawa and Yamada come out of their rooms and go into the kitchen, he decided he should too, not realizing he had big bags under his eyes and how he looked like a mess. As he walked into the kitchen, he saw Yamada grabbing 3 bowls and some cereal for the cupboard. Hey little listener. How did you, wow, you look as tired as shoulda. Izuku scratched the back of his neck nervously. Oh, do I? Aizawa looked up from his phone and picked up the coffee jug. Geez kid, you do look like CRP. You want some coffee? Why yes please. Sho. You can't give him coffee, he's 13. Zashi, be quiet. It's fine Yamada, I've been drinking it for years. What? Honestly Zashi, it isn't a big deal, chill out. Aizawa then got a mug and poured Izuku some coffee. Do you want it black or do you want some milk or something in it? No please, can I have it black? Sure kid. Izuku took the mug off Aizawa and sat down drinking it. Yamada looked at them both. You two are both so similar in the morning. Yeah, Zashi, hurry up, we want to leave the house by 9 so we can get to the shops early. Sorry Sho. They all sat down and ate breakfast together. Izuku even managed to finish the whole bowl of cereal, which Yamada and Aizawa were secretly proud of him and relieved because he had only eaten 2 slices of pizza and a bacon sandwich the day before. Time skip, still Izuku's POV. Everyone was ready to go to the shops and Izuku was still in worn-out clothes because they hadn't bought him any new ones yet, however that's what they were going to do. Hizashi, come on. It doesn't take 45 minutes to do your hair. Aizawa exclaimed loudly through the apartment. Yamada came running out of the bedroom with his hair in his iconic style upon his head. Sorry Sho. It just won't stay upright. Suddenly, that hairstyle just dropped. Sho. What do I do? Aizawa sighed and turned to Izuku. This happens every other week. Izuku let out a small laugh. Leave your hair Hizashi, we can buy a different hair gel brand at the shops. You also don't even need your hair up because then you'll be recognized in public. Oh yeah. Sorry I forgot Sho. I don't care Zashi. Just hurry up. It's already 9:30 a.m. and I wanted to be quick so it wasn't busy at the shops. Finally, they arrived at the shopping mall. Izuku was slightly shaking and was nervous. He hadn't been to a large shopping mall since he was 4, never mind go shopping and choose his own clothes. Aizawa must have picked up on his nervousness and put his hand on his shoulder and smiled. It's okay kid, we probably won't be more than a couple hours at most. You do want to get back home and watch some more movies, don't you? Yeah I do. Sorry, thanks for bringing me. You don't need to thank us, problem child. Aizawa ruffled his hair and the new family walked in together with Izuku standing in the middle of Aizawa and Yamada. After about an hour they had already gotten Izuku some toiletries like shampoo and conditioner. They had also bought him lots of different clothes. Also, despite his protests, they had also bought him a fancy new book and a set of pens for his analysis and some gray paint to paint a wall in his bedroom. They had also bought more exciting furniture and some stuff to decorate his room. Finally, they only had one thing left to buy: shoes. All three of them walked over to the shoe store and walked inside. So, little listener, what shoes are you thinking? I can see you have some red high tops right now, but they are looking a bit worn. So, what shoes do you want this time? Izuku looked at them all and they all looked so expensive. Problem child, I can see you looking at the price of things again. Oh right, sorry. You don't need to apologize for everything. Sora. After about 5 minutes Izuku found another pair of red high tops, but these were in much better shape and looked completely different to his current ones. You sure you want the same ones, little listener? I'm sure, Izuku said with confidence. Okay then kid, let's go pay. They all walked over to pay and then they left the shop and decided to start walking back to the car. However, as they left the shoe shop and started walking, Izuku recognized a boy with spiky blonde hair and red eyes walking towards the three of them. It was Bakugo. Izuku was about to tell Aizawa and Yamada to walk the other way when the angry kid locked eyes with Izuku. Deku? Guys, let's go dash. Before Izuku could finish his sentence, Bakugo ran towards them, nearly tackling Izuku. Deku, you bstd. What the F are you doing here, huh? Kakanai. Who the F are these two losers with you? Why aren't you with Auntie Inko? Izuku flinched at the name Inko, and Aizawa looked at Bakugo with anger in his eyes. Excuse me, but who the F are you? Don't you dare talk to my son like that again, or I will not hesitate to put you in your place. Aizawa flashed Bakugo a cold stare, sending chills down Bakugo's back. Come on Izuku, I think we should head back home now, Aizawa said to him in a more gentle voice. Bakugo didn't know what to say and was silent for a minute while Aizawa turned Yamada and Izuku around and they all started to walk away when Bakugo started yelling again. What is he talking about, son? He isn't your dad. Where the F is Auntie I? Don't ignore me. As they walked away, Izuku was violently shaking and Bakugo's shouts became muffled as people in the mall were all turning around to look at the scene that was caused. Finally they had gotten to the car. However, tears began to fall down Izuku's face again and he started gasping for air. He couldn't breathe. He was having a panic attack. Izuku could hear Aizawa and Yamada's voices, but they all felt so far away. Finally, Izuku's body gave way and he collapsed onto Aizawa. The lack of sleep, the nightmare, the shopping experience, and then Bakugo was too much for Izuku to handle. So, the two worried adults picked Izuku up and put him in the back of the car laid down, while Yamada and Aizawa drove Izuku back home. However, the two adults seemed to have the same things in their mind. Who was that kid? Izuku's POV. Izuku woke up with his head pounding. What happened? He groaned, trying to sit up. Suddenly, everything that happened earlier that day had come rushing back to him. Oh shit. Kaken Bakugo was there. He was at the mall. He saw Aizawa and Yamada. I wasn't there with Inko her. Wait, did Aizawa call me his son? Did he mean that? Oh my god, Bakugo is going to literally kill me at school. There's going to be so many questions. Oh my god, what will he do? Oh my god, what am I going to do? Shit, I'm such an idiot, if only I... Suddenly Aizawa walked in. Oh kid, thank god you are awake. Do you remember what happened? Izuku nodded his head. Well then, after you passed out in the car park, we drove you home and let you sleep. Then, Aizawa walked over and sat on his bed and pulled him into a hug. Are you okay, kiddo? Really? Izuku looked at him for a minute, unsure of what to say. Am I okay? I mean, this is my life. It has been this way since I was little. It's normal, right? I mean, I know it's not, but I'm quirkless, so the rules are different for me, but it still hurts so much. Problem child? Sorry, Izuku was silent once again and Aizawa realized what he meant. So, he pulled Izuku into another hug while silent tears poured from his green eyes. Kiddo, I'm going to help you. You will be okay, alright? I'll make sure you are okay if that's the last DMN thing I do. You got that? Izuku smiled and melted further into the hug. Thank you to Aizawa. Oh see, I nearly just said dad. I haven't even had a dad for so long. Why would I say that? I hope he didn't hear. Little did Izuku know, Yamada was standing outside listening in on the conversation, and if Aizawa hadn't noticed the slip, Yamada did, and was overjoyed. Sho. Izuku. Dinner is ready, come on. Yamada had loudly announced through the whole house, and Aizawa groaned and looked at Izuku. Ugh, he is so dim and loud. Come on kiddo, we don't want to keep him waiting. Why The two of them walked into the kitchen, and Yamada had made pumpkin katsu for their dinner, with fluffy white rice and edamame. Wow Yamada, it looks amazing. Thank you. No problemo little listener. Come sit. The three of them sat down at the table and began eating their dinner. They were all sitting in silence eating, however, Aizawa and Yamada knew they'd have to bring up the kid from the mall. So, Yamada decided he should be the one to break the silence. So little listener. Look, we just want to talk about earlier if that's okay. That kid seemed to know you and well, we just want to know what happened and why he was so rude. Izuku choked on his food and then looked up at Yamada, unsure of what to actually tell them. You see. Problem child, it's okay, take your time. Okay, well. I've known him for as long as I can remember. His mum was a friend of my M's. Aizawa then looked at him and then Yamada. So, is that why he said Auntie Inko he knows your mum? Izuku visibly flinched and responded. Why But listener, why was he so annoyed at you and he seemed to set off a panic attack? Are you friends? Well, he was my friend until, well, I was diagnosed quirkless. He doesn't like me very much now. Aizawa and Yamada looked at him with concern in their eyes, but Izuku spoke again. But it's okay. He would never hurt me. Izuku knew it was a lie. Bakugo had hurt him on more occasions than he could count. He probably couldn't even call them occasions, as they practically happened daily. But he didn't want Aizawa or Yamada to worry about his school life. Well, little listener, if you're sure I'm fine, you don't need to worry. Izuku clearly wanted them to drop the subject, however, Aizawa persisted. What's his actual name? You called him Kaken, like a kid's nickname, why? Oh, because when I was younger I couldn't pronounce his name correctly and it just stuck. Aizawa looked at Izuku. What's his actual name then? Oh, it doesn't matter. Aizawa gave him a suspicious look. Why did he call you Deku? It's just something he calls me. You do know what basically means worthless, right? Izuku. Yamada then looked at Aizawa and spoke in a soft voice. I think he knows, let's just move on to something else, okay? Why Zashi? This kid has clearly hurt Izuku and I want to know what happened. Aizawa, I'm okay. I'm going to go to bed though I am really tired. I guess I do have school tomorrow anyways. Both of the adults looked at him before Aizawa sighed in defeat. You know you don't have to go tomorrow, problem child. It has been quite an eventful weekend. It's okay, Aizawa, I need to. And you said that you want to help me get into UA, right? Well, I need good grades too, so, thanks for the meal, Yamada. I'm going to go to bed. If I don't see you in the morning, I'm sorry, I go to school pretty early. Izuku stood up and placed his empty plate in the sink and looked at them both. Good night. Good night, kiddo. Good night, little listener. Izuku turned away from them and walked to his room, getting his pajamas on, mentally preparing himself for another sleepless night. Aizawa's POV. Aizawa and Hizashi were still sitting at the rest table with their empty plates sitting in front of them when Izuku walked out and went to his bedroom, closing the door. Aizawa let out a sigh he didn't even know he had in and put his head in his hands whilst Hizashi rubbed his back in a circular motion. It's okay, Sho, he'll come to us when he is ready. Will he though, Zashi? I mean, something is up with that Kaken kid and he won't tell us. Did you see the way he spoke to our kid? He practically screamed at him and called him a Deku. Izuku's face had fear written all over it when he saw the blonde piece of sheet. Hizashi sighed. I know, Sho, I don't like it. Either, but if we keep pushing him, then he might just shut us out completely. We are so lucky he has already trusted us as much to tell us what he has. Let's not pressure the listener, okay? Yeah, okay. I don't like this though, not one bit. I don't either, all we can do is try. And I doubt a kid like that would even get into UA anyways, so he only has to deal with whatever is going on for about 4 more months, okay? Yeah, okay. Hizashi leaned over and kissed him. He will be okay, Sho, we can help him. Let's just go to bed too, I'm tired. Luckily we don't have to be up early tomorrow, do we? No, we only have afternoon classes tomorrow, don't worry. Okay. They both gave each other a warm smile and walked to bed together. Time skippo Izuku's POV. It had been hours. Izuku had been laying down in his bed trying to fall asleep for hours, but nothing worked. He had too many thoughts. Izuku sighed. Oh great, look at the clock, it's 4 a.m. I don't know what's gonna happen today. Oh god, I know Kabakugo won't kill me. I know that. But now he knows something is up. I'm so FING useless. So I can be a FING vigilante for nearly a year, live on my own, and I still can't stand up to him. What's wrong with me? Am I just that weak? I should get ready for school. Maybe I can leave in about an hour and just sit at the park for a while and then head over to school for about 8? At least if I do that, I can avoid questions from Yamada and Aizawa before I leave. I can also do some analysis. It's been about a week since I last did some, so it should be okay. Izuku jumped out of bed, throwing his messy uniform on and grabbing his most recent, 13th analysis book. He stuffed it into his big yellow rucksack and decided against breakfast that morning. He just wanted to get out of the apartment. He quietly wrote a quick note to Yamada and Aizawa to let them know he set off early, and then quickly and quietly left the house, locking the door behind him. Yamada had given him a key the night before, telling him that he would need it because he was now living there. The memory warmed Izuku's heart and he smiled slightly. Finally, he arrived at the park. He sat on one of the old swings and pulled out his new phone. Aizawa and Yamada got him checking the time. 5:14 a.m. It was even still dark outside, but Izuku preferred it this way. He enjoyed the cool morning breeze as it hit his pale skin and rocked the swing slightly, and how he could hear faint sounds of birds. The city was always busy, so he preferred it when not many people were around. He started writing in his analysis book and remembered the techniques of the villain who stabbed him, quickly scribbling in his notebook. Sheet, it's 8:22. School starts in 8 minutes. Izuku had lost track of time writing and quickly jumped off the swing, gathering his things, and ran for the school. You would have thought Izuku would check the time with the sun rising and everything, but he was just so engrossed in writing he completely forgot. He ran into his classroom to see he had just barely made it to registration, when Bakugo looked at him and made a weird face, not talking to him, and turned back to the teacher. That was odd. He didn't throw an insult at me? Izuku sat down and tried to pay attention to the teacher when he said he was going to talk to us about our choices of high school. Izuku zoned out when he shouted that the forms and choices don't matter, as he knew they all wanted to go on the hero track. Suddenly, Bakugo started monologuing about how he would be the best and he would go to UA, when his teacher spoke again. Ah yes, Bakugo, you do have good grades and an excellent quirk. Maybe you will get into UA? Ian, right, I will. I am better than all these extras. Izuku gazed out the window when his teacher spoke again. Ah yes, Midoriya. He flinched at the use of his last name. You want to apply to UA too, correct? The room fell silent before bursting out into laughter. OMG, Midoriya wants to get in, how pathetic. How delusional. He's quirkless, right? How sad. He thinks he can be a hero. Wow, I didn't know he could get any more useless. Izuku sat there and took every insult they threw at him. I will be a hero, I have to be a hero. I'll prove them wrong. Suddenly the teacher saw Bakugo's anger bubbling and small little blasts came shooting out from his hands. So, he decided he should probably say that that's enough before Bakugo hurt Midoriya again. Not that the teacher cared, it was just more hassle. Okay, come on class, settle down. The rest of the day was pretty silent after that, only a few trips in the hallway and some insults thrown, not as bad as usual. However, he knew the worst class was yet to come. Maths. The only class Izuku had with Bakugo on a Monday except homeroom. Throughout the entire class, Bakugo kept shooting Izuku murderous looks, but Izuku tried to ignore it. Finally, the long hour was up and Izuku quickly tried to pack his things in his bag to head home when Bakugo came up to him. What do you think you're doing, Deku? You aren't going anywhere yet? BB Bakugo, I'm sorry, but I have to go. Deku, I'm only going to ask you once, who the F were those two beaters you were with at the mall? Bakugo, you tell me. Bakugo had grabbed hold of Izuku's shoulder, burning it and his uniform. Izuku was trembling. Bakugo, the family F friend, yeah? That was the best excuse he could come up with. Bakugo stood there unsure if it was a lie or not, but then surprisingly, dropped the subject. Shitty Deku. I also wanted to tell you something. Don't apply to or I'll kill you. I'm going to be the first and only student from this shitty school to get in, got that? Remember what I told you before, right? If you want to be a hero so badly, then you should take a swan dive off the roof of the building and pray for a quirk in your next life. Bakugo then punched Izuku right in the face, cutting his lip open. Then he walked out, leaving Izuku on the floor, confused and upset. I'll show him one day he's wrong. For some reason Bakugo's words hurt Izuku more today than any other. He didn't know why he got it all the time, but it still hurt. He scooped up his belongings and walked out. He didn't understand why he took everything they said to him. I could easily beat their buttes if I want to. Why don't I just do it? I'm so dim and weak. Izuku walked out of school and checked his phone. 5 missed calls for messages. He clicked on the messages. Yamada microphone. Hey little listener. How was school? Sho is trying to contact you, he's going to meet you somewhere, please call him. Laughing face. Izuku, you okay? Your school finished 30 minutes ago, please call one of us. Aizawa hot beverage. Kid, please just call me. I need to meet you at that cat cafe again. Tsukachi is here too, we need to talk to you. Problem child, answer your DMN phone, we got it for a reason. Izuku sighed. I wonder what they need to talk to me about? I'll take a shortcut to get there. Izuku turned down an alley and dialed Aizawa's number. Aizawa? Sorry I don't see your calls, I was held up at school. Okay kid, you alright? Why yeah, I'm okay, I'm coming to the cafe right now, I'm only 5 minutes awa dash. Suddenly Izuku heard something and turned around. Why oh, you'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid. When Izuku turned it was already too late. The mister was filling his body with sludge and Izuku dropped his phone on the floor, shattering it, abruptly ending the call with Aizawa. Izuku couldn't breathe or think. He was paralyzed, then his vision became funny. He knew he was going to pass out, when suddenly he heard laughing and then he felt oxygen fill his lungs once again, but then he had already passed out with one thought in his head. If I can't save myself from this, then how am I going to be a hero? Aizawa's POV. Earlier that day, Aizawa groaned and looked over at his alarm clock. 10:34 a.m. I'm too tired for this sheet. Aizawa sat up in bed and Hizashi was already in the kitchen making breakfast. I wonder if Izuku got to school okay? He hasn't messaged to let us know. He checked his phone, scrolling through all his messages that he chose to ignore, especially from his friend Namuri, the pro hero Midnight. She would always harass him with her strange drunk messages at 4 in the morning. As he kept checking, he saw 8 messages from Tsukachi. What's this? He never usually texts me this early, he knows that. He checked his messages and his eyes widened. Oh my sheet, I need to talk to Izuku. I wonder if Tsukachi already spoke to Hizashi? Shoyuta hurriedly walked into the kitchen to see his husband with his hair in a messy bun flipping eggs in the frying pan, looking as happy as ever. Well, good morning my sleepy husband dash. Zashi, we might have a problem. What do you mean Sho? Aizawa sighed. Well, time skip. It was 3:10 p.m. and Tsukachi and Shoyuta were sitting in the cat cafe where Shoyuta had first taken Izuku, whilst Hizashi was still at the police station with some other officers trying to dig up more on the information they had just acquired. Shoyuta had texted Izuku and called him after school too to see where he was. About 10 minutes later he texted Hizashi to see if he could get in contact with Izuku. Yamada Hizashi. Hizashi, please can you text Izuku? He isn't responding to my texts or calls. Of course I can Sho. I'll let you know if he responds. Love you. Thanks Zashi, I love you too. Aizawa sighed and put his phone away and quietly spoke to Tsukachi about what exactly they were going to tell the green-haired boy. Suddenly, it was nearly 3:40 p.m. and Shoyuta was getting concerned. Hizashi said he hadn't responded to his messages or calls, so he was unsure of what happened to cause him not to kick up the phone. Then his phone rang. Izuku. Accept. Decline. Then he heard his voice and let out a breath he didn't know he was holding in. Aizawa? Sorry I don't see your calls, I was held up at school. Okay kid, you alright? Why yeah, I'm okay, I'm coming to the cafe right now, I'm only 5 minutes awa dash. Kid. Then Shoyuta heard something else. You'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid. The call then ended. Izawa looked at his phone and kept dialing his number, but it went straight to voicemail. He was panicked. Tsukachi, I need you to trace where the call I just had came from. I think something happened to Izuku. What happened, Shoyuta? I don't know if Demon Tsukachi. He slammed his bat onto the table. Trace the DMN number. Okay, let's go. They both quickly stood up, leaving the bill and a tip on the table as they walked out with everyone staring at them after Izawa's outburst. But Izawa didn't care. They walked to the car and quickly set off to the police station to track the number. Please be safe, problem child. Izuku's POV. You'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid. When Izuku turned, it was already too late. The monster was filling his body with sludge and Izuku dropped his phone on the floor, shattering it, abruptly ending the call with Izawa. Izuku couldn't breathe or think. He was paralyzed, then his vision became fuzzy. He knew he was going to pass out, when suddenly he heard laughing and then he felt oxygen fill his lungs once again, but then he had already passed out with one thought in his head. If I can't save myself from this, then how am I going to be a hero? Izuku's eyes started to flutter open as he was awoken by yelling and someone slapping his cheek. ID. Kid. Ha. You woke up. Thought we'd lost you there, young. Ah, hell might. W8US saved me? Izuku immediately sat upright and started shuffling backwards, astonished by the fact he'd been saved by his childhood hero. That's right. Me, the #1 hero, came to your aid when you were in danger. Ha. Well then, what is your name, my boy? Izuku. Oh my god. All might see, can you sign my... You already signed it? Indeed I did. Well then, young Izuku, I must be off now. A pro hero is always on the move. W8. All might. I have a question. I'm sorry, my boy, I have to get going. See, can I still be a hero if I don't have a quirk? I know it's hard, but I could be a hero like Eraserhead. He essentially fights quirkless, and he is still a good hero. Ah, well, you're quirkless, I see. To be honest, no, you cannot be a hero. You are too weak, and quite frankly you just got caught by that sludge villain and you couldn't protect yourself. You will be nothing but a liability in battle. But what about Eraserhead? Oh yeah, him, I really don't like Eraserhead. He is trying to play hero when he could easily be overpowered with someone with a quirk. He should have never become a hero with a quirk like that, and you? You can't be a hero, my boy. You just can't. Do something else with your quirkless life that I, All Might, saved from death. Be a police officer or run a cafe. I don't care. But you can't be a hero. Remember that, All Might? Silent tears started streaming down Izuku's face as he stared into All Might's eyes until he turned away from Izuku. I'd say I'm sorry, my boy, but I am not. Being a quirkless hero is a foolish dream. I best be off now. I'm only telling you the truth, which is what a true hero would do. All Might then jumped into the air and started shouting down to the crying boy. Hope you enjoyed meeting the #1 hero. And I hope you find a realistic dream. Bye-bye now. As All Might flew away, Izuku felt like the last part of his heart had shattered. The #1 hero had told him he can't be a hero and practically laughed in his face. He felt so broken just when he thought his life was turning around with Izawa and Yamada. Izuku just sat on the floor crying his heart out. I can't believe I am so weak. Izuku's POV. Izuku sat there crying for what felt like hours, and at some point it had started to rain. He was just sat there with the same demon words going through his head. No, you cannot be a hero. Izuku didn't know what to do. He had trained so hard, done so much. He had trained his body, studied, worked, he had even become a goddamn vigilante, and it wasn't enough. Granted, All Might didn't know that, but would that matter? He even said he hated Eraserhead. He is a pro hero, but All Might still thinks what he is doing is wrong. So even if he does have a quirk but fights quirkless and All Might hates him, then what chance do I have? Izuku knew deep down that he shouldn't dwell on All Might's words. Eraserhead and Present Mike had told him he could be a hero. But there was something different about All Might telling Izuku. It could have been that he was his hero. His symbol of peace. His hope. When Izuku sat up late at night feeling hopeless, he would turn to All Might, but now, All Might had just laughed in his face. Izuku was sad, angry, confused, lonely. Even though it had only been his home a few days, all he wanted was to be wrapped in the tight embrace of Yamada and Aizawa. He wanted to be at their home all together laughing, watching crappy Disney movies and eating greasy American food. Even though this was all new to him, that was all he wanted. He wanted to go home. Aizawa's POV, at the police station. The minute Tsukachi. I thought you said you could find out his IP address quickly. Aizawa yelled. Shoyuta, I know you are worrying, but your yelling isn't helping anyone. Pull yourself together, he is probably fine. You should go call Hisashi though. Aizawa sighed, glancing down at his phone and looking at his contact. Izuku. No new calls or messages. Aizawa rarely worried. However, in that moment he wasn't just worried, he was scared for his kid. He walked over to the jug of coffee that was on the side and grabbed one of those small foam cups and poured himself a black coffee before calling Hisashi. This might take a while. Shota. Come here. Tsukachi called. Have you got an address? Aizawa said tiredly. Yes, the phone call was traced to an old alleyway about 20 minutes from the school. On XXXXXX Street. I'm going. Wait. Shoyuta, do you need anyone to come with you? No, it's not too far, I can run. Be careful. I'll be fine, thanks Tsukachi. Aizawa ran. Faster than he had in his whole life. He really cared for Izuku and wanted to keep him safe no matter the cost because it was his kid. Finally, he had gotten there. However, all that he saw was Izuku's phone smashed on the floor and his old campus notebook on the floor that read, Number 13 in messy kanji. Hero analysis for the future number 13. Aizawa picked up the book and just started at it before opening up onto a recent double page that said, All Might. He once again really didn't know what to think. Thoughts swirled around in his brain and his confusion spiraled. Did he meet All Might? Did a villain get him? Did All Might save him? Why is his book here? He wouldn't just leave it here. Did All Might do something? Did he say something? I know his thoughts on me being a pro. Is he hurt? How will I get to him now? Do I wait here, go home? Shoyuta ran his hands through this messy hair as rain started to fall down from the sky again. He picked up the phone to call his husband again, this time asking if he could leave work to help find him. Sho, did you find the listener? Geez, Zashi, keep it down. No, I didn't. I don't know what to do, Zashi. We need to find him. When I got to where his phone was smashed and his notebook was here. I'm really worried. What if something happened? What if he's... Shoyuta, calm down, it's okay. I'm sure the little listener is fine. I know with the news and everything I'm scared too, but we can find him. I'm heading out of work now and I'll help you look. He can't have gotten far. Shoyuta sighed. Okay, I'll send you the address. Okay then. Love you, Sho. See you soon. Bye, Zash. Call ended. Aizawa sighed. He was worried for his kid. He knew he was capable. He had been a vigilante at 13, but he couldn't help but worry. Shoulda. Aizawa looked up from his phone, moving his now seriously wet hair from his face, looking up to see his loud husband waving at him with an umbrella running towards him. Jesus, Sho. It's so cold and wet. Get under the umbrella. Come on. I'm fine, come on, let's find him. They looked. They had searched for what's felt like days when it had only been a couple hours, with their panic and worry increasing. The city was large, sure, but Izuku couldn't have gotten too far out, and where would even go? They kept searching, eventually splitting up to find him. So, Shoyuta was there now, all alone, searching small alleyways and large crowded streets to find a kid he had only just taken in a few days ago. Until, for better or worse, a news notification popped up on his phone. Breaking news. Slimy sludge villain attacks vulnerable middle schooler when All Might jumps into action to save him and another reckless teen who tried to fight. Shota's eyes widened as he clicked on the small pop-up notification on his phone, which led him to a news article with 3 distinct photos. One being of a boy with spiky blonde hair and red eyes with a scowl on his face. Sheet, that's that kid, isn't it? The second being of All Might stood is a ridiculous hero pose. But the third caught his eye. It was of the scene with all the civilians, with small kid in the background with middle school uniform, green, unkempt hair and glowing green eyes. Suddenly he got a call. Zashi. Shoulda, did you see the news? Izuku was in one of the photos. He could be going home or with the police or something quickly. Meet me down there. I know, I'm going to be there in 5. They quickly hung up again and Aizawa started leaping from building to building trying to get to the scene as soon as possible. You stupid kid. I hope you are okay. Izuku's POV. Before the sludge villain attacks Bakugo, Izuku still sat on the ground contemplating his next move. He should probably head to the cafe or home. Didn't Aizawa and Tsukachi want to talk to me about something? Izuku sighed and stood up looking at his hero book later out on the floor with All Might's signature in it. He picked it up, only to close it and lay it back on the floor again closed. He started walking home. Or to Aizawa and Yamada's home. He didn't know if they actually really wanted him there or they just pitied him. He was starting to question everything now. He was just so lost. I shouldn't let what he says get to my damn it. He once again felt water dripping down his face. Don't effing cry, you idiot. He wiped his sleeve with his arms and then when he snapped back into reality, he realized he had taken a wrong turn. I'm such an idiot, can't even walk the right way. His thoughts cut off as he heard screams and saw smoke up ahead. A villain. I shouldn't go. I don't even have my analysis book. Not like I'd really need it. But maybe I'll just take a quick look. He walked towards the scene steadily, picking up the pace as he approached, and voices or civilians picked up. Someone needs to help him. Why are the heroes just standing there? Oh my god, this so bad. Poor kid, he must be terrified. He pushed through the crowd to see what the commotion was about. When he got there, saw red eyes piercing through his body. Kaken. That's the same villain from earlier. He must have escaped All Might somehow. He didn't really have time to think and he didn't know what he was doing. He was just running. He didn't stop. He ran and ran straight into the scene and threw his backpack at the villain with a pencil flying in his eyes. Bakugo was temporarily released from the hold of the monster. You idiot. Why did you come? I don't need help. I'm sorry, Kaken. I don't know what happened. My body just moved. I'll kill Y-. Suddenly, the villain got a hold of him again, but this time someone came closer and started laughing. BSI. Deja vu, huh? Suddenly Izuku was thrown backwards and he once again slipped into unconsciousness. Izuku woke up to the sound of sirens and commotion on the damp concrete, when suddenly a random police officer and a couple small-time heroes came up to him. Finally, you are awake. You stupid kid. Running into a battle like that. The heroes were handling it. Yeah, that was insanely reckless. You are free to go, but if you do something like that again you may die. They all scolded him for his reckless actions, as he looked over and saw Bakugo getting all the praise of the pros. He was glad Bakugo was safe even if he was gonna get the sheet beaten out of him later. He sighed and tried not to think about it when All Might came over. All Might. I'm so sorry. W.I.D. And just as quickly as he came, All Might left, being surrounded by the media questioning his presence in Japan as he was last seen in America. But Izuku didn't care about that. His childhood hero had broken his heart twice in one day. He clenched his fists, making his knuckles turn white as he resisted the urge to start bawling his eyes out in front of everyone. It was getting late now. The sun had just begun setting as it was still raining, but now it was only a trickle. Should head back? I wonder if Yamada and Aizawa are worried. No, I don't think they would be. He sighed and picked up his tatty yellow backpack, which now felt half as empty as several of his belongings had been lost in the attack. And finally, after one hell of a day, he began walking the apartment he was staying at with Aizawa and Yamada. Until a certain ash-blonde male's shouting stopped Izuku in his tracks. Hey, did you? Izuku flinched at the nickname as he turned around to be met with Bakugo. You'd med nerd. I didn't need your help today, got that. I could have held my own. I didn't need help from a weakling like you. And before Izuku could even respond, Bakugo had stormed off, leaving Izuku confused but relieved there was no physical violence. As he kept walking down the silent streets of Japan, once again he was stopped, but this time by none other than Aizawa's capture weapon. Aizawa? Izuku turned around as much as he could in the restraints as he was met with a certain loud blonde and the tired grumpy male to which he had become so familiar with in a few short days. Seeing them brought tears to his eyes as the capture weapon released him and he collapsed onto the floor and began sobbing as Izawa and Yamada both ran to him and hugged him, letting him let all his emotions out. Gee guys, IW is scared so much as H happened, I don't know where to begin. Oh Izuku. It's okay little listener, we are here now, it's okay. We were so worried. Then Yamada started to cry too. W8 you were worried? Izuku asked, wiping tears from his face with his hooding sleeve. Of course problem child, what the hell happened? We were on the phone 1 minute and then next you were gone and we saw the news. Shoyuta sighed, pinching the top of his nose before continuing. We looked all over, we thought you'd gotten yourself killed. Just please don't do that again. Izawa then wrapped him in another warm embrace of a hug as the three sat in the middle of the empty street together, as all three males were crying, even if Izuku and Yamada thought they were the only ones. Izuku's POV. After the long tiresome day the three had, they went back to their apartment walking alongside each other. Once they got back, Yamada had made some frozen microwave meals and they all sat at the table whilst Izuku told them everything. He told them what happened at school as to why he was so late. Bakugu. That was his answer. And when he elaborated, Izawa was the one who was mainly said, Yamada was just sad. Izawa said he'd contact the school the next day, demanding punishment for Bakugu, or getting it shut down because apparently he had contacts, but Izuku couldn't tell if he was joking. In the end, Izuku managed to talk him out of both ideas, and instead they decided they should transfer to his school for the next few months of the remaining school year, which they would look further into soon. Next, Izuku had told them about the sludge villain. He was ashamed, embarrassed, he shouldn't have needed saving, especially if he wanted to go pro. They told him it was fine and even heroes need saving sometimes, but that didn't help. So, finally Izuku had told Izawa and Yamada what All Might had said, and to say they didn't take it well was an understatement. Flashback to earlier that night. He did what? Izawa jumped up from his seat at the table, shaking it as he did. Why yeah, it wasn't the most pleasant experience. Izuku chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. Do worry little listener. All Might is and but. Izuku chuckled a little bit at Yamada's words and then Izawa decided to cut back in again, this time with a deadly aura surrounding him. As he clenched his fists he spoke, that motherfucking symbol of sheet, and say whatever the F he wants about me. However, when it comes to you, oh my if he got I'm going to F show him who is dash. Suddenly Yamada put a hand on his husband's shoulder trying to get him to calm down a bit, before Yamada whispered something in Izawa's ear, and both of them looked at each other with a scary smile before Izawa chilled the F out a bit and sighed, putting a hand on Izuku's shoulder, squatting down on the floor. Look problem child, All Might is FING wrong. He always has had something up with me he doesn't like very much. Now, whether that's because I fight quirkless or he doesn't like my power I'm not sure, but it's okay. All Might is only number one in the fact that he's apparently likable to the public and he has saved a lot of lives. Basically though, it's the Hero Commission's doing. In those rankings they don't include underground pros or those who aren't aligned with the Hero Commission's policies, as they are quite irrational. The main reason Zashi is with them is because after we graduated UA, he was taken in by an agency to start with and he didn't read all the terms and conditions of the contract he had to sign. Suddenly, Yamada cut in, waving his arms about. There were a lot of words on that page. How did you expect me to know I signed up for the rest of my career with them? Zashi, shut the F up. Noted. As I was saying, Izuku, All Might probably hadn't even saved the most people, so in theory he probably isn't the real number one hero. My guess is that it is someone underground. But regardless, you can be a hero. I bet even someone better than All Might. And don't worry, I know exactly how I'm going to deal with All Might the next time I see him. He better be FNG ready because he doesn't stand any motherfucking chance. Suddenly, the dark aura came back, covering both Izawa and Yamada as they exchanged evil grins, and Izuku gulped before running in to hug them both. He had never had someone care for him before. But now, Izuku had realized his new guardians were willing to deal with the number one hero for him, and he couldn't be happier. End of flashback, still Izuku's POV. After all the talking and with things cleared up, they had all ended the night talking about UA's entrance exams, which were only a few months away from now. They decided he would start training with Izawa to build up as much muscle and stamina as they could, Even though Izuku was already pretty good, from all his own training and vigilante work regardless though, he still needed more professional skill. They reassured Izuku that he could be a hero and that if Aizawa could get into UA's hero course fighting quirkless, then Izuku could too. After all this talking, Izuku said his goodnight to the two adults and went to bed. He immediately collapsed onto his comforter and fell into a deep sleep, where he actually had positive dreams for once. Aizawa's POV, after Izuku went up for bed. Today was way too exhausting. Shoyuta looked over at his husband who was combing his long hair. I know, but Shoyuta, despite everything that happened today we didn't tell him. Shoyuta groaned, How do we even address it? How would you feel if you were told there was a chance you were related to them? We still can't be certain. Tsukachi said we needed to tell him in case he was targeted, but I doubt he will be, so why don't we just bring it up another time? Shoyuta, come on. He deserves to know. Demon it, don't you think I know that? I just think we need more proof first. If they think he is quirkless, don't you think they would leave him alone if they were created? I don't know, Shoyuta. I think we should tell him though, even Tsukachi dash. But Tsukachi doesn't determine what we do. We are his family now. Not Tsukachi. We determine what's best for Izuku's mental health and he is suffering. We need to do our best to help him, and telling this new information about his biological father and their family could set him back greatly. Please Zashi, for the sake of Izuku. Hizashi sighed, understanding where his husband had come from. Yeah, okay, but if we need to in the future we have to tell him. Okay, I agree. Good. After some more conversing about Izuku and schools, they continued to talk about the day they had both had with Izuku, which led to the all-might side of everything. Aizawa directly looked at Hizashi and began to talk. Oh yeah, and that all-trash piece of shit. I can't believe he would say that to someone, especially Izuku. I know, Sho, but don't worry, remember what I said? The plan may be a long one, but we'll show him he can't mess with our little listener. Hell yeah. I still just want to smash his own face in though and wipe that smile of his effing face. Shoulda. Third-person POV. After that day, a lot happened. Aizawa and Yamada never again bring up Izuku's supposed blood relations, but more good happened than bad. Izuku's adoption papers were properly processed, and the new family celebrated with Katsudon and Disney movies. Izuku's name had also been legally changed from Midoriya Izuku to Aizawa Izuku, with them deciding that Izuku should take Shuta's last name because Hizashi's was already known to the public. Izuku had also begun training with Aizawa, learning more advanced sneak attack skills, raising his stamina, close combat, and even learning how to use Aizawa's capture weapon every now and again. However, that often ended up with a bloody nose, so they decided to keep that until later. He had also been taken to UA for the first time, where Aizawa and Yamada had properly seen Izuku fanboy for the first time, and they were both thrilled that Izuku was so happy. There, he was introduced to many pro heroes, including the famous Principal Nizu, who said he was excited to see what lay ahead for Izuku. He had also met Kayama Namuri, the hero Midnight, which Aizawa was not happy about, especially since she first decided she wanted to keep Izuku for being the cutest little piece of broccoli she had ever seen. Needless to say, she didn't keep him. However, she had named herself Auntie Namuri, and Izuku was honestly so excited the whole time he agreed, making Midnight his unofficial aunt. She would also often come around unexpectedly to take the family out to dinner or to join them. Again, Aizawa was not happy with what happened, due to the extra noise that came from their high school friend. Izuku's current middle school situation has also changed significantly, meaning he no longer went. He stayed at the school for a few more weeks. However, after they had introduced Izuku to Nizu, he insisted that Izuku take a middle school graduation test to see if he could graduate early and drop out. To Aizawa and Yamada's surprise, but not Nizu's, Izuku passed the exam with a score of 97.4%, meaning he no longer needed to go to school, leaving him studying high school work in advance for when he would apply to UA in the months ahead. This also meant he could focus on physical strength, not just mental. Speaking of which, Izuku got significantly better in the months building up to the entrance exam, and his stutter had almost completely gone when talking to those he knew like Aizawa, Yamada, and Namuri. He still had nightmares and bad days, but he would get through it, and the Aizawa-Yamada household was stronger than ever. Plus, not having the stress of the kids from school on his back every day helped Izuku overall, and he hadn't even seen Bakugo in months. Finally, the most important event that happened in the months leading up the UA entrance exam happened 2 months after the sludge villain attack. Izuku had accidentally let slip a whole "dad" to Aizawa when talking to him. At first Izuku was traumatized and apologized profusely. However, Aizawa had told him he actually didn't mind being called that as he already saw him as his own son. This meant that Izuku now called Yamada Pops, which was more of an American term for dad sometimes. However, that fit perfectly, as Yamada loved American culture. In summary, there were a lot of happy tears and ice cream that day. However, after all that training, after all those months of laughter and happiness, finally, the day had come. The UA entrance exams. It was the hardest school to get into in the whole country, with only 40 applicants accepted per year for the Hero course and 60 applicants each for the General Studies, Support course and Management course, resulting in a total of 220 students per year. Despite the unrealistic odds and being quirkless, Izuku was determined, and with the support of his 2 dads, Izuku thought he might actually have a shot at his dream school. So, that's what led Izuku to be standing outside the gates of UA between his dads, an hour and a half before the exam started. Izuku's POV. I know I've been to UA before, but it just feels so much bigger and more realistic now I'm actually here for the exam, you know? Don't worry, kiddo, you'll do great. Zashi, if you don't shut up you will draw attention to us. I'm sorry, Shoyuta. I am just so excited. Izuku chuckled, looking between his one tired dad and this other loud dad, sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. Aizawa noticed his nervousness once again and placed a reassuring hand on Izuku's shoulders. Look, problem child, you will do great. I got into the Hero course without a quirk that would help my physical ability at all, and I had nowhere near the amount of experience and training you had. Don't stress, we believe in you, kiddo. Thanks, Dad. Izuku smiled at Aizawa as he pulled him into a hug, and he hugged back until Yamada poured and looked at Izuku. Hey, where's my hug? Izuku laughed again and hugged his other dad. Hee, sorry, Pops. After their little moment together, they walked through the gates to look at the empty school, walking into the empty exam room with rows upon rows of seats, with a huge stage at the front with a huge smart board. Izuku looked around. I can't believe nobody is here yet. Aizawa looked at him. Oh yeah, they start trickling in an hour before the exam. Look, kiddo, today I need you to pretend you don't know any pros here, until the exam is over, and discreetly come and find me and Hizashi. Is that okay? Yeah, no, that's fine, I get it. So should I sit down? Yeah, you are on the 5th row. Your seat has your name on it. Thanks, Dad. See you soon, guys. Izuku walked away waving as the 2 pro heroes looked back and smiled at Izuku and waved as they prepared for the exams, and all the students started coming in. About an hour later, most people were seated. To Izuku's left, there was a boy with purple gravity-defying hair. Oh my god. He's quite cute. I wonder what his quirk is? Izuku tried smiling at him, but he just looked at him weird and turned away. However, to Izuku's right was a girl with brown hair and pink cheeks, and suddenly she started talking to him. Hi. I'm Uraraka Achiko. What's your name? She smiled and Izuku looked at her, but with his crippling social anxiety, he started stuttering again. Oh, me? She giggled. Yes, you silly. Izuku looked at her and answered. Oh, it's me, no sorry, Aizawa Izuku. The girl giggled again. Oh my god. You are just so cute, Aizawa. You look like broccoli. Izuku blushed slightly at the reference, remembering when Midnight calls him that. Thanks. She smiled widely at him, then suddenly someone started yelling really loudly on the stage and everyone turned their attention to see present Mike, Izuku's dad. Izuku slimed as he started talking. All right, listeners. Ready? Silence. Izuku nearly burst out laughing at the reaction of the crowd. I bet Dad is laughing so hard at Pops right now. Suddenly, he started describing the rules of the exam, but Izuku had already read them in the handout everyone had been given, but he read his early before everyone got there. Luckily, he had already thought of a couple of strategies in his head, so he should be safe. Suddenly, a student's yelling brought Izuku back to reality. I am sorry to interrupt, sir, but may I ask a question? There appear to be no fewer than 4 varieties of faux villain on this handout. Such a blatant error, if it is one, is highly unbecoming for you, Japan's top hero academy. Then there was dead silence and complete mutual judgment towards the weird guy who had just shouted to present Mike and begun chopping his arms in the air. Suddenly present Mike spoke again. Examinee 7111, nice catch, but I was about to explain that, yeah. Then suddenly Izuku listened to the description of the 4th robot, and then in what felt like an instant, the explanation was over and everyone started moving to the changing rooms to get prepared for the practical exam. He started walking out of the building. I can do this, I have my dads looking out for me. I can be a her. Suddenly he tripped on a rock and started to fall. I'm a failure. I'm going to disappoint everyone today, and the first sign of that is this stupid demon. He paused. He literally paused in the air. That's when he began to panic and then stood on the floor normally, and the girl from earlier was next to him. Hey. Sorry I used my quirk on you. I just thought you seemed so sweet earlier and it's a bad omen to trip and fall, so I wanted to help you. She giggled and Izuku looked at her. It's all so nerve-wracking, isn't it? Welp, I'll see you in there, Izawa. It was too late. Izuku was so confused. What just happened? Was that her quirk? He sighed and kept walking. And it Izuku, keep it together, you have even been here before you can do this. Everyone is watching. He took a deep breath and went to get changed, and before he knew it, he was done and standing outside a large gate which would lead to the grounds of where the exam would take place. Izuku sighed. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt, with a black hoodie over the top and black jogging bottoms with his favorite red shoes. He had also gotten permission from Nizu to use his bow staff, which he had become quite skilled at using recently. He took another deep breath and put a hand on his chest. I can do this. Suddenly, he heard his dad yelling again and the gate opening. What's wrong? The test has started, run. However, as soon as the gate had opened, Izuku knew better and ran before everyone else, running up to the first robot he could see. And so it began. Izuku's POV. Izuku could hear the faint noise of his pops screaming at the other examinees as he ran, leaving all the other students confused, giving him a head start. As he ran, he smashed into his first robot with his bow staff, smashing it directly in its head, jumping into the air. A 2-pointer. He kept going as the other kids kept running in with their quirks, destroying all the robots they could. He saw a couple of interesting kids, like one with a belly button laser who literally had sparkles coming off of him, and the annoying kid from earlier who tried to show up his pops. He also appeared to have engines coming from his lower legs, and Izuku presumed he had a speed quirk, especially with how he was destroying the robots. He shook his head and decided to stop analyzing people and focus on his own points. That's 19 points. Izuku kept going around trying to get as many as he possibly could. However, with the other contestants, he was struggling, and not to mention these were freaking robots. He could go against people a lot easier, as he could try to read them, but robots were so unpredictable. As he kept searching, he saw a familiar mob of gravity-defying purple hair, and he watched as he struggled with a 3-pointer. Should I go help him? Izuku watched him for a couple seconds before they locked eyes, and Izuku could feel his cheeks heating up, but before he could even process what happened, the boy's handle on the robot slipped and he was about to be crushed by the robot. Without a second thought, he dashed over, quickly grabbing the boy's forearm and tried to pull him out of the way. He then ran behind the robot and jumped up from behind, once again destroying a robot by smashing the top in with his bow staff. As he jumped back to the ground, Izuku wiped the sweat from his forehead with his forearm before looking towards the boy, and his eyes widened as he saw him up close. He couldn't really produce any thoughts. He just started at him, and it was like his heart stopped and his mind went blank. Suddenly, he was snapped out of his trance by the boy clicking his tongue and looking at him before scowling. I didn't need your help. Izuku looked at him and responded, sorry, I asked. The purple-haired boy turned around and stomped away as Izuku was still trying to form a sentence. See, he's mad at me now. Oh my god, what even just happened? There's no time to think. Just think about it after. Izuku then proceeded to try to find another robot to get it, but it was no use. He was running out of time, and Izuku was going to fail. Aizawa's POV and other pro heroes' POVs. Just before Izuku saved Shinso in the examination room, Aizawa and Yamada were currently sitting in the examination room with the teachers and Principal Nizu watching the exams. Cementos looked over at the group and pointed out a kid with ash blonde hair. That kid in Area A is doing better than anyone else so far. He nearly has 50 points. Aizawa looked over at the TV and scowled, and Principal Nizu spoke. Ah yes, that is Bakugu Katsuki. He goes to Aldra Middle School. His quirk is explosion. He has a lot of potential, however his apparent anger issues could cause his downfall. Midnight looked over. Oh yes, Bakugo, I know that kid. She scoffed and looked over at Aizawa, who tried to ignore the situation and look at Izuku, when suddenly everyone watched as a kid with purple hair slipped and was about to be crushed. Everyone's eyes widened and started to panic slightly until he was pulled out of the way by a certain green-haired boy. Midnight jumped up and shouted, "Oh yeah! That's my amazing little broccoli." Everyone chuckled and Nizu looked at Aizawa. I must say, Aizawa, when you introduced me to Izuku, I was intrigued. Now I am quite certain that Izuku is a very skilled child, especially for someone quirkless. You have done well, Aizawa, with your training, and I am certain he will make an excellent addition to the hero course. Aizawa smirked and was about to say something as Yamada was beaming and started shouting, "Oh that's our kid." Aizawa then spoke. Hizashi, please be quiet. And yes, he is quite skilled. However, it wasn't just me. Izuku is very skilled in combat and I am certain he will be a great hero. The teachers then all spoke about his reflexes and how skilled he was. Aizawa looked back at the screens where the other students were competing, and Izuku was looking around for another robot to take down, until suddenly the door swung open and everyone's heads whipped round to see who was at the door. XSW? Aizawa and Yamada look at each other and their mood suddenly changes and they both look at each other thinking the same thing. What the F is All Might doing here? They both then look at All Might and glare at him, giving off a deadly aura. All Might looked at the two confused and was about to say something until Nizu spoke up. All Might. What a lovely surprise. I didn't expect you to come here in person and actually watch the examinees. Well, we were all talking about examinee 4026. His name is Izuku, and he is quite a marvelous examinee, especially considering the fact he is the only quirkless applicant. All Might looks extremely shocked and walks over to the screen and looks at Izuku. He recognized him and gritted his teeth. WSPN? SSSINX? All teachers except Aizawa and Yamada, who were still glaring at him, looked shocked by All Might's sudden change in attitude but overcame it quickly, and Snipe is the first to speak. What do you mean, All Might? He is quite a skilled examinee, better than some quirked ones. Power Loader then spoke next. Yeah, All Might, we could create some really cool support gear too to help him. Then Power Loader was followed by Ectoplasm and some other heroes who all responded talking about how good he was. Aizawa was finding it really hard not to just lash out at All Might and attack him, but Yamada kept whispering to him, telling him to wait, while putting his hands in front of Aizawa. All Might looked puzzled at the teacher's reactions and he spoke again. Why, S, is XSS? X? IHIS? Aizawa was now extremely sad if at All Might and wanted to just punch him in the nose, until Midnight looked over at the two and decided she was gonna step in first. Yeah, but All Might, you didn't see him. He helped that kid with the purple hair who would have been seriously injured by the robot if he didn't help him. My favorite little broccoli is so strong. Just watch the exams and you'll see. Midnight had sparkles gleaming all around her and this further confused All Might. All Might looked at her. MYIW? Midnight then looked back at All Might. What do you mean? Look at his hair. He's practically a vegetable. And I'm basically his auntie. He's Aizawa and Yamada's kid. Then Midnight realized what she just said and slapped a hand on her mouth and turned to Aizawa, who shifted his glare from All Might to Midnight, and she sweat dropped and took a couple steps back. Aizawa, clearly very annoyed, stepped forward and sighed very heavily. Yes, Izuku is our adopted son. Have you got a problem with that? Oh yeah, guess you didn't actually know when you met him for the first time, did you? All Might gulped and Nizu looked at Aizawa and Yamada just shook his head indicating to just not step in. Then Aizawa spoke again, activating his quirk and his eyes glowed red. Yeah, and do you even remember what you said to my son? He used to look up to you when he was younger. Then Izawa took a step forward towards All Might, but you decided to be something not that far from a flaming pile of dash. Suddenly, everyone fell silent as the zero-pointer robot had arrived in Izuku's exam area, causing destruction, and everyone watched intently as everyone ran away, but a girl with brown hair was stuck under all the rubble. Then, they watched as Izuku jumped up onto the other rubble and eventually jumped onto the robot and punched the metal to make a dent, and pulled off part of it and partially climbed in, and tried to detach the wires. After a few seconds, he succeeded, and the colossal robot came to a halt, before beginning to fall over. Nizu smiled mischievously and spoke, "Well then, would you look at that? I do not believe we have had a student in at least 10 years to take down the zero-pointer." He then started cackling maniacally, and sipped his tea as the other teachers stared at the screen in shock. Then, the robot started falling further backwards, and Izuku jumped forward into nothing and started to fall. Panic arose in everyone's chest, especially Izawa and Yamada's, as they watched Izuku fall. Then suddenly Izuku was slapped across the face by the girl he had saved earlier, and he began to float, then was dropped onto the ground. He then passed out and all the teachers just started wide-eyed at the screen, until Izawa muttered a quiet F-. Then Yamada looked at him and nodded and Izawa looked at everyone. "Come on Zashi, let's go, see you all later." Then, Izawa and Yamada left the room, leaving all the teachers speechless, except a grinning Nizu. Izuku's POV. Izuku started waking up, and tried to open his eyes, but the light was too bright. Then he heard familiar voices talking. Will he be okay then? Yes, he just needs some rest, he's probably exhausted from everything he did today. Thanks Chio. No problem you two, but make sure you keep him out of trouble, he isn't even a student yet. I do apologize for the trouble recovery girl. He then fully opened his eyes and started trying to speak, even though his voice was quite raspy. Dad? Pops? They suddenly turned their heads to Izuku and he tried to sit up, as Yamada immediately engulfed him in a hug. Izuku. We were worried. Come on Zashi, get off him, he just woke up. Come on Sho, chill. Izawa rolled his eyes and sat on Izuku's bed and ruffled his hair a bit. I was worried. How are you feeling, child? I'm feeling better, but I'm guessing the exam is over then. Izuku turned his head and bit his lip, and he already felt his eyes glossing over with water as he knew he must have failed the exam, and resisted the urge to cry. Izawa and Yamada looked at each other, and then their gaze fell upon Izuku, and it softened. Don't worry about the exam problem, child, it'll be fine. We just need to get you rested up. Izuku looked at them both. Why yeah, but you must have seen the amount of points I got. I think I only got 22 or 23. Come on little listener, don't be so down, just wait for the results, yeah? Izuku forced a smile and looked at them. Why okay? Come on, let's go home. Izawa lightly smiled at them both and Izuku got out of the bed with the help of Izawa and Yamada and all three of them went home. Over the next week, Izuku wouldn't stop worrying about whether or not he was accepted. It was all he thought about. Izawa and Yamada could see he wasn't doing well but knew that it would pay off and he should know when everyone else would know. He continuously trained and studied trying to keep his mind off things, and he occasionally thought about the boy from the exam. He really wished he didn't make him mad and he at least knew his name. But despite everything he didn't think he was good enough, and was worried that if he wasn't accepted, that Izawa and Yamada would think he wasn't good enough and get rid of him. His anxiety skyrocketed and he didn't really know what to do. Until finally his letter arrived a week after the exam. Izuku, your letter's here. I'll show you deactivated my quirk. Izawa sighed, ignoring Yamada. Here's your letter, do you want to open it alone or do you want us to stay with you? Izuku thought about Izawa's offer, and he didn't know. If I wasn't accepted, it's best I do it alone, to avoid immediate disappointment from Dad and Pops, but if I get in then I'd rather they be with me. But if I also don't get in, it would be better if they are there to help me, but if I do get in, Izuku, don't overthink this, we can just stay with you. Hey, thanks Dad. No problem Izuku, let's just go sit down at the table. Yeah, okay. All three of them sat at the table beside Izuku. Izuku took a deep breath and both his dads placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. He then opened the letter and a metal disc came out, and suddenly a hologram appeared. Hello. Am I a bear? Am I a dog? Am I a mouse? Nobody knows. But it doesn't matter because I'm the principal. Well, Izuku, I'm sure this has been quite a nerve-wracking week for you. I do apologize, but thank you for waiting. I wanted you to receive your results at the same time as all the other students. So, let's get right to it. Well, actually, first I have a couple videos for your viewing experience. Now, here is the first one. The video started with Midnight standing in a lobby on her phone looking at something, until a girl with short brown hair and pink cheeks came up to her. Excuse me, Mississippi Midnight? I was wondering if I could talk to you. Midnight looked at her. Of course, dear. What seems to be the matter? Oh, well, do you know that kid? I think he said his name was Izuku? He was kinda plain looking and didn't really stand out or anything. He kinda had hair like a broccoli? That's best to describe it. He didn't use a quirk or anything that I saw, but when I was trapped under the rubble, he was the only one who even tried to help. I don't know how many points he got or anything, but please, if he hasn't made it to pass, well then, please give him some of my points. She then bowed at a 90 degrees angle and Midnight chuckled and smiled at her, then she patted the girl's head. What is your name, sweetie? Oh, it's Uraraka Ochiko. Well, Uraraka-san, thank you for this. However, no need to give him your points. I'm sure he will pass with a heroic heart like that. Okay, well, thank you, miss. Oh, sweetie, no problem. Hello again, Izuku. Hope you enjoyed that video. Now here is another one. This video started with Aizawa and Yamada walking down the hallway, which once again looked like after the exam, until a familiar boy with purple hair and dark eye bags ran up to them. Excuse me, I'm Shinso Hitoshi. You are present, Mike, right? And you look like Eraserhead. I'm guessing you are both examinees or something? Aizawa raised an eyebrow and looked at him. Yes, we are. I'm surprised you know who I am since I'm underground. Oh, yeah, well, I know a little bit from research. You are kinda one of my favorite heroes, he said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. Aizawa looked at him again and spoke. Oh, well, thanks. Did you need something? We were kind of going somewhere. Yeah, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting, but I just needed to ask if transferring points is possible. Because, well, I know I didn't get enough to pass the exam. I got about 15 at best. My quirk isn't suited for the exam. I knew this, but I wanted to try. It's okay though, I applied for general studies too. But there was this guy, he had like green hair and green eyes with freckles. He had a bow staff, I think, and was kinda see you. I mean, never mind, anyways, I was rude to him, but he helped me, so can you just like give him my points? I'd feel pretty shitty, I mean bad, if he didn't get in because he was helping me. So can you? Aizawa and Yamada both looked slightly shocked, but Yamada had a bringer smile and placed a hand on his shoulder. Thanks for telling us, Shinsu-san, we appreciate it. I'm not sure if it can work, but I can relay the message. Either way, thanks for your kindness. We must go now, but we hope to see you around. Yeah, bye. The video then ended. As you can see, Izuku, you have inspired those around you and showed what being a true hero means by saving people. Now we unfortunately cannot transfer points. However, there was a system nobody knew about, and that was rescue points. So then your score was 102 points, 22 villain points and 80 hero points. You got first place in the exam. Congratulations, Izuku. I look forward to now seeing you at UA as an official student now. Then the video ended and Izuku was in shock. I got first place? What? And 2 people asked to give me points. And one was the cute guy from earlier. He said his name was Shinso? Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. Izuku started tearing up and he looked to both his dads who were smiling at him. I can't believe I did it. You deserve it, problem child. You have worked so hard to get here. We knew you could do it. Yeah, little listener, you are going to you. Yeah, I am. All 3 of them were smiling and celebrated that night. And if Izuku thought he was happy before, this was the happiest he had ever been. Third person POV. Time skip 1 week after Izuku received news of being accepted into UA and starts in a UA staff meeting. Over the past week after Izuku had received news of passing the UA entrance exam, he started more intense training, as Yamada and Aizawa prepared for meeting and class setups. That is why they are currently sitting in a meeting which currently consists of Principal Nizu, Midnight, Cementos, Snipe, Vlad King, Ectoplasm, Power Loader along with some other teachers, and of course Yamada and Aizawa. Principal Nizu was the first to talk, initiating the meeting. Hello there my fellow colleagues and pro-heroes. I have gathered us all there today to discuss several topics regarding the start of the school year, so if you please may all stay seated and we shall begin. Then, over the next hour, Principal Nizu spoke about some things regarding which students are in each class and how the school year should play out. Izawa, Yamada and Namuri had also all glanced at each other as they paled looking at the list of students in Class 1A, which consisted of none other than Bakugo Katsuki. They would have to remember to warn Izuku. It was quite a boring for the rest of the meeting for Izawa and Yamada as they kept glancing at each other clearly bored, until they were finally reaching the end and Nizu spoke again. Thank you all for listening so intently, but finally I have one final announcement to make. As you are all aware, there was a student named Togata Mirio in Class 2B last year who will be moving into Class 3B this year. However, this means you are all aware that he indeed does have two quirks, permeation, and the strength-enhancing quirk which allows him to enhance his speed and strength, a quirk similar to All Might himself. At the slight mention of All Might, Izawa, Yamada and Midnight all gritted their teeth and scowled before Nizu continued. Also, some people have been curious about the relationship between Togata-kun and All Might. So, to help Togata-kun's progress, I have been given permission to inform you all that All Might wasn't born with his quirk. In fact, his quirk is quite unique and was given to him from a hero which unfortunately died in battle some time ago. Her name was Shimura Nana, and she gave her quirk to All Might. Everyone in the room was silent with wide eyes processing what had just been said, as Izawa and Yamada just started at each other simply thinking the same thing. What the F is going on? Nizu still continued the conversation, however that isn't the extent of it. All Might can also transfer his quirk onto others, and if you haven't already guessed, it was Togata-kun. He got the quirk just before he started at UA, and has been training with it, and that is why he can't control it as well as his permeation. So, to help further the progress of Togata-kun and the students, we will be welcoming All Might to our staff this year, and he will teach foundational hero studies to our first-year students, basic hero studies to the second years, and finally advanced hero studies for the third years. Why the F is All Might teaching anyone other than the third years? Everyone's heads whipped around to see who spoke, and of course, it was Izawa with his head hung low and his hands balled into fists as he slammed it onto the table. All Might has no education experience to teach the students at this school, and just because he has some kind of special successor in the third year does not qualify him to be teaching. Yamada looked over at his husband and knew that he was about to snap. He could see it in his eyes. As furious as Hisashi was that All Might would have to teach their son about being a hero after trying to crush his dreams made Hisashi feel sick. However, Hisashi knew he had to keep his sheet together for his husband who was about to explode at the principal possibility of getting him fired, thinking about how far he would go. So, Hisashi took the opportunity to stand up and politely bow at everyone. Thank you for the meeting, Nizu. Good to know we will be having All Might teaching those little listeners. He chuckled slightly, forcing a smile on his face. Well, I think me and Sho should go now. Our little Izu is at home waiting for us, so we shouldn't keep him waiting, right? Anyways, goodbye everyone. Text you later, Namuri. Hisashi forcefully grabbed Izawa's hand and pulled him out of the room before anyone could talk about Izawa's outburst. As soon as the two of them left the room, Izawa immediately raised his voice. What the F, Zashi? But Might again. He's teaching our son hero training. Hey Sho, calm down. We just left the room. I bet they can still hear us. We can talk about it in the car, okay? Izawa sighed and the two walked out of the building to the car. Third person POV. Another time Skippo, sorry I do a lot. Some time had passed since the meeting, and it was Izuku's first day at UA High. Izawa and Yamada had spoken about what they were going to tell Izuku about All Might being a teacher. However, they hadn't even decided on what to say. They had also received a phone call later the night they came home from Nizu asking them not to tell Izuku. So he didn't know yet. Luckily, they didn't have their hero training until day 2 anyway. However, something that had slipped Izawa and Yamada's minds was that Bakugo Katsuki was in the same class as Izuku. They had been so focused on All Might it had slipped their minds. Of course Izuku knew that Izawa was his homeroom teacher, but that was about all the warning he had. So, Now all three of them stood outside the gates once again, but Izuku as a student. Izuku had been quite silent all morning, and it concerned Hisashi and Aizawa, but they knew he was nervous. "Hey, problem child?" Aizawa laid a hand on Izuku's shoulder and looked at him. "Yeah, Dad? You will be okay, you know that, right? I'm your homeroom teacher as well, so I'll make sure you are okay." Thanks, Dad. B, but what if they don't like me because I'm quirkless and it's all like a middle school again? You don't know until you go in, little listener. I bet some of those nice kids from the exam are in your class. Come on, problem child, just breathe and chill out. We have to get to the staff room. We'll see you later, kiddo. Aizawa ruffled Izuku's hair and smiled lightly as Yamada gave a large toothy smile and stuck his thumbs up, and they walked away out of sight, leaving Izuku at the front gate. He took a deep breath and thought, I can do this. Izuku's POV. Izuku walked up to Class 1A practically shaking as he tried to ease his nerves by muttering to himself. He still had 15 minutes until homeroom actually began, but he was now standing outside the door to Class 1A. Geez, the doors are so big here, I keep forgetting. He stood outside for a minute and put his hand on the handle until a boy with heterochromatic eyes and two-toned hair stood beside him and looked at Izuku. Are you going in? Izuku immediately looked to the side of his to see the boy, and as soon as he took in his features, heat immediately rushed to his cheeks and he started stuttering. Yo, I am so sorry. The boy looked at him again. It's okay? You don't need to apologize. See you in the class, I guess. The two-toned-haired boy pushed past Izuku and pushed the door open and walked in first, going straight to the back of the class. Izuku followed in after him, only to be immediately met with crimson-red eyes. Huh? F Deku got in? Huh? F Deku got in? Izuku's POV. Bakuga's eyes stared into Izuku's immediately as he entered the classroom, and they both froze momentarily because of the shock until Izuku jumped back and started to quickly walk faster toward the back of the class, until he was yanked back by Bakuga's forceful grip. What the F do you think you are doing here, Deku? Izuku gulped as he now turned around again to look at Bakuga. The few students in the classroom could feel the tension rise, and it felt like the whole temperature in the room dropped as Izuku was being stared down by Bakuga's icy glare. Izuku started trembling ever so slightly that the two-toned hair boy at the back of the class noticed, and so he started to get out of his chair until he was interrupted by a familiar boy with blue hair and glasses. My name is Ida Tenya from Sumei Private Academy, and this is unacceptable behavior for students of UA. We should be showing actions and signs of exemplary hero students, not terrorizing fellow classmates on the first day. This will not be dash. Shut the F up. Bakuga dropped Izuku and whipped his head around to Ida. Don't you F interrupt me. Did your old school put a stick up your butt, or were you born with it? F. Ida dramatically put a hand on his chest and he looked utterly shocked and gasped, I am your classmate. Are you sure you are in the right place because dash. Suddenly, Ida was cut off by what sounded like someone falling on the floor and a gruff voice. Already the first day and there is arguing. If this is how you will act in the hero course, then get going and find a different school. Izuku already knew whose voice that was and let out a large breath, and he then realized that all of his classmates were in the room now, and had probably just seen what happened. He decided to brush it off as he looked over to where everyone was standing frozen in shock, looking at his dad on the floor sking the remaining juice out of his food pack in his yellow sleeping bag. My name is Aizawa Shoyuda and I'm your homeroom teacher this year. Welcome to the hero course. He then proceeded to step out of his sleeping bag and tried to discreetly give Izuku a reassuring and guilty smile as he then glanced over at Bakuga. Izuku was pretty set off that he wasn't even told Bakuga got into the hero course. But why wouldn't he? He is amazing even if he is a jackass. His quirk is perfect for attack power and he has so much potential. Izuku tried to shake his head again of any thoughts about that and focused on his dad. Bakuga's POV. Don't think I've done this one before. Meanwhile, Bakuga stood looking at their homeroom teacher, with wide eyes and his jaw dropped slightly. He then looked over at Deku and back at his homeroom teacher and saw the looks they gave each other and how the homeroom teacher had tried to smile at Izuku. Bakuga was in too much shock to even realize that the teacher somewhat glanced at him, as he recalled the memories from the mall that day. Flashback. Deku BSTRD. What the F are you doing here, huh? Kak and I. Who the F are these two losers with you? Why aren't you with Auntie Enko? Bakugo then looked at the male with black hair and he looked at him with so much anger in his eyes. Excuse me, but who the F are you? Don't you dare talk to my son like that again, or I will not hesitate to put you in your place. The man flashed Bakugo a cold stare, sending chills down Bakugo's back. Come on Izuku, I think we should head back home now. The man with black hair had said to Izuku. Bakugo didn't know what to say and was silent for a minute while the three started to walk away when Bakugo started yelling again. What is he talking about, son? He isn't your dad. Where the F is Auntie I? Don't ignore me. Bakugo remembered how confused and set off he was that day, and then how when he tried to ask him about him, he just said they were a family friend. Family friend my butt, a family friend doesn't call the kid their son, moron. Could he not think of a better excuse? What did happen to Auntie Inko then? I don't remember his dad much really. I'll have to ask the effing old hag when I get home. Bakugo was beyond confused and said, how the F did he even get into you? He's effing quirkless. Did that teacher guy FNG get him in or some sheet? I don't FING know. Bakugo just clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, slightly lowering his head, and decided to stay silent. For now. Izuku's POV. Aizawa had given them all PE uniforms and told them to go get ready to go outside. Most of the students were confused but obliged anyway. Aizawa had also slyly handed Izuku a long dark blue sleeved shirt to go under his PE uniform. Aizawa had known how self-conscious Izuku gets, especially regarding his scars, so Izuku was relieved when he had done that. He had also gotten changed around the corner from anyone else to avoid questions. However, now they were finally outside. Izuku stood off to the side a little, wanting to try and avoid Bakugo as much as possible, until a girl with brown hair started to approach Izuku and recognized her. Hey, that's the girl I sat next to in the orientation for the exam. And she's the one that asked to transfer her points to me at the end, and she saved my life with her quirk. What's her name again? Uraraka? Yeah, Uraraka. Hey there Izuku, right? It's so great to see we both made it into the hero course. She started to jump in the air and smiled. Izuku looked at her and gave a small smile too. Hi, you are Uraraka, aren't you? Yep, that's me. Are you okay after earlier? I noticed that the blonde spiky boy was being quite rude to you and the tension in the air was so high. Oh Bakugo? Why yeah, we kind of had some tea trouble in a middle SCH school. You went to the same middle school? Well, I'm sorry to hear that though, but it's night school now, right? And we are at UA. It might be better now. And you already have me as a friend. Uraraka pointed a thumb to her chest and smiled again. Why yeah. Okay, thanks Uraraka-chan. Hey, don't worry about the honorifics. I call you Izuku, right? You can call me Achiko if you want, or just Uraraka, I don't mind. We are friends now. She nudged his side slightly and Izuku started to smile. Yeah? Izuku and Uraraka chatted for a few minutes, getting to know each other, and Izuku was surprised. Already my first day and I have a friend. She's so nice and bubbly too. Once again, Izuku's dad started talking. He told the class they would be doing physical tests and whoever came in last would be expelled, but it was really to see their abilities. However, they could use quirks. That put Izuku at a slight disadvantage, but with all his training he would probably be able to do well, right? They had done lots of tests like grip strength, 50-meter dash, ball throw, sit-ups, and many more. By the end, most of those who lacked more offensive quirks were exhausted, and those with offensive quirks had mostly excelled. However, Izuku was exhausted, but considering the odds, he had a pretty good chance. Finally, they were all done and waited for their results nervously to see who would be expelled, and they went in the order of this. Yairo Zumomo, Todoroki Shudo, Bakugo Katsuki, Ida Tenya, Tokoyami Fumikage, Tsujimez, Ajuru Mashireo, Kurishima Iger, Ishido Mina, Uraraka Achiko, Aizawa Izuku, Kudakoji, Satoru Kido, Dashutsu, Ryuma Yuga, Shiro Hanada, Kaminari Denki, Jarikyoka, Hagakure, Mineta Minoru. Izuku let out a breath of relief as he saw his name at 11, and not in all honesty, Izuku was shocked though. I placed 11th? Sure, I have good stamina and I have quite good core strength, but it doesn't change the fact I'm quirkless. I even placed in front of someone who seems to have a strength-enhancing quirk. I wonder if there are any special specifications for activation, but he already seems quite strong. There must be more to it. And that boy you met outside the classroom, Todoroki Shudo. At least now you had his name. He appeared to have an ice quirk, however. The quirk easily appeared to cover his body in frost on only one side, but after it appears the ice on him disappeared as it evaporated. But he has two tones to his hair, and if the ice comes out on the white side, the red side could be a heat-controlled quirk. Wait, Todoroki. Like the flame hero Endeavor. He did get in on recommendations, so it makes sense. He must also have a fire quirk, but why? Izuku realized he had zoned out again analyzing people. Luckily, he hadn't said anything out loud or he would seem like a stalker or something, but Aizawa seemed to have said something, but Izuku just presumed that Aizawa said he wouldn't be expelling anyone. So, he once looked around the class, seeing them all looking relieved except for one. Bakugo, he looks at, completely livid. Unconsciously, you moved back a bit closer to Uraraka. However, that obviously wouldn't stop him actually walking. Bakugo kept walking. Each step he took toward you was quicker, angrier. Until he was about 15 steps away and he started talking. What the F, Deku? How the hell could someone like you get a score like that? You should have come in last. You shouldn't be here. 10 steps. By now everyone was staring at Bakugo. You never learn, so you. I had to try to beat it into the stupid FING head of yours in middle school, but you didn't listen. What the F is wrong with you? You are FE quirkless. This isn't a school for weaklings like you. 5 steps. Most students gasped, and some just stared at Izuku while others pondered on Izuku's tests from earlier, realizing that he had actually never once used a quirk. Bakugo was practically at Izuku now. You could hear the little pops of his quirk in his hand, probably readying it at Izuku. For steps. Izuku didn't think anyone would react to help him out in the situation, but luckily for you, your dad helped. Thank God Dad is my teacher. Aizawa had activated his quirk and wrapped Bakugo in his capture weapon, and everyone started Bakugo. Suddenly he was released from Aizawa's grip and Aizawa started saying something to him, but Izuku couldn't hear him and his voice was muffled as Izuku's anxieties ate at him. Everyone just found out he was quirkless. They would find out one day, right? Why was he so upset? Suddenly the silence was broken by a boy with yellow hair and a black zigzag through it. Is his name Kaminari? Dude, are you really quirkless? Then suddenly, a girl who looked like a frog put a finger to her chin and started talking. Come to think of it, I don't think I've seen him use a quirk all day. She gave a little rib bit after and she just smiled at everyone as they started talking. Izuku looked at them all and gulped but decided he should talk. Why I am quirkless? He then walked back to the changing rooms, not talking to anyone with the fear they'd now hate him all on his first day. Izuku tried to change quickly and away from everyone, so he got back to class again first. About 10 minutes later, the door opened, revealing many of his classmates. He tried to bury his face in his arms on the desk, but suddenly lots of them approached him. Oh God, no. First to approach him was a boy with red spiky hair and a contagious smile. Hey, dude, what's up? You were so manly out there. I can't believe you got such a high score for someone quirkless. You must be so skilled. I'm Kirishima Aijiro. I hope we can be friends. Izuku looked at him with wide eyes as another girl began to talk. Hey, I'm Ishido Mina. But you can call me Mina. I don't like being called by my last name, it's boring. I'm Kaminari Denki. I have an electric quirk. I'm basically a portable charger. He smiled proudly. One by one many students introduced themselves to him, including Siro, Azui, Yaoyorozu, Jiru, Aoyama, Tokoyami, Hakigure and Ida. There was also a kid called Mineta, but he started trying to look up Yaoyorozu's skirt, so Azui restrained him with her tongue. They spent nearly 15 minutes talking and Izuku was happy and smiling. Most of the class were in conversation, besides the angry ash blonde who was grumpily sitting in his seat and Todoroki who was looking over at Izuku with curiosity. Who are you, Aizawa Izuku? The rest of Izuku's day was great, and at lunch, he had sat with Uraraka and Ida who were really nice. He had also gone the whole day with only a couple of awkward questions like, are you related to Aizawa-sensei? And, Why did you wear long sleeves outside for PE in the weather? However, fortunately for him, he quickly avoided without causing suspicion. So, finally, it was the end of the day and everyone was walking out. Ida and Uraraka had offered him to come to the station with them, but he humbly declined to say that he had to go to see the teachers to make last-minute adjustments on his costume. However, he had to go see Aizawa and Yamada so they could go home together. As Izuku entered the staff room, he was immediately greeted with Yamada. "Hey little listener. How was your first day?" Yamada ran up to him and engulfed him in a large hug as Izuku smiled happily and looked at him. "Hey Pops. It was great really. Mostly everyone was so nice and kind. I even have lots of new friends." Yamada smiled largely at his son's happy attitude and he noticed how Izuku didn't stutter once with at least 10 other teachers in the room. "Oh my god, I'm so glad Izuku." Then, Aizawa came into view holding a travel mug with what probably contained coffee in it. "Yamada, I swear to God half the school can hear you." "Dad. Hey kiddo, I guess you enjoyed your first day? I saw you talking to everyone in class after the Bakugu incident. You okay after that?" Izuku rapidly nodded his head. "Yup. Everyone was so nice to me, it was so refreshing." Aizawa smirked. "Told you you'd enjoy it. Come on, we need to get home, I'm exhausted." Time skip. After the three went home, they all had a really happy meal together with Izuku talking to both Yamada and Aizawa about all his friends and about how cool all their quirks were and how he would have to take his analysis book the next day. Now it was about 10 o'clock and Izuku said goodnight to his parents and got ready and was laying down in his bed thinking about everything. "I can't believe how nice everyone was. They didn't even care if I was quirkless. They even treated me as an equal, saying how my abilities were amazing. The one person I didn't really talk to was Todoroki. He looked like he wanted to be alone though, but he looked kind, the way his white and red hair just casually laid on his face, some covering his eyes and what appeared to be a scar on his eye, how he just rested his chin in the palm of his hand and discreetly fiddled with his pencil. He looked kinda cute." Izuku flushed red thinking about it and buried his face in his pillows and groaned. He had always had a feeling he liked guys. In elementary and middle school he never really took interest in girls, but in middle school he thought there were a couple of cute guys when he was in his first year, but it confused him because he was meant to think that way about girls. However, when he was living on his own, he did research on everything, and obviously knew he must have liked guys that way. However, he remembered his mother cursing about stupid FGS and how disgusting gay people were before she left him. He frowned at the thoughts. She isn't in my life anymore. Hell, now I even have gay dads. It's fine to like boys this way, but it doesn't mean they will like you back that way." Izuku sighed. However, there was also that other boy from the exam with purple hair. His name was Shinso, wasn't it? He tried to talk to Dad about even transferring his own points. I wonder if he passed the exam? He could be in the other hero class 1B. I hope he goes to UA. Maybe I'll ask Dad about it in the morning. I want to thank him for asking to transfer points. Yeah, that's why. I thanked Uraraka earlier anyways. Izuku then fell asleep waiting for the next day. Beep, beep, beep. I just want more sleep. Izuku looked over at his alarm. 6:31 a.m. Guess I should get breakfast? He sighed and slipped his slippers on and groggily walked out of his room into the kitchen, yawning and rubbing his eyes. "Good morning, Dad." "Morning, kid. Breakfast is already in your place. Sashi made it, but he's getting ready now." Thanks." The two sat in silence as Izuku munched on his rice, and Aizawa sipped his coffee on his phone, until Izuku remembered something. Yes, I can ask him about Shinso now. He's bound to know if he got in." "You a dad?" I was wondering if I could ask you something about one of the students from the entrance exam and if you know if they got in." "Which student?" "His name was Shinso Hitoshi, I think. He had fluffy purple hair and he looked really tired, like he hasn't slept for a while. He asked you and Pops about giving me points." Izuku turns to the side a bit to hide his cheeks, which were currently dusted a light pink color from his dad. Aizawa raised an eyebrow looking at him and responded, "I remember, he got into 1C, General Studies. Even though he had the potential with his power, it's a mental quirk, so the exam with robots was hard for him to use his quirk. I think he's gonna try for the hero course when the sports festival comes around in a couple months." "Why do you ask?" Izuku looked at him again, and no reason, I just thought I should thank him is all. He was really kind to come and talk to you, and pops, that's all. Aizawa hums in response and Yamada comes through the door. Good morning. Aizawa rolls his eyes and Izuku smiles at him. Then the three talked for a bit until Izuku asked a question they didn't know how to respond to. So, we have our first hero training today, right? Do you know who our teacher is? Both adults froze and Aizawa choked on his coffee, but Yamada was silent, which scared Izuku. Guys? Aizawa's POV. What do we tell him about All Might now? He is literally going to be teaching him today. And off all the times Zashi decided to keep his big mouth shut. Aizawa rolls his eyes, but Zashi does decide to talk. Well? Izuku, we didn't tell you sooner because we weren't meant to and we didn't know how you'd feel about it. But All Might as well, he's the hero training teacher this year. Izuku's eyes widen as he looks between the two before choking out, Oh, is he? Izuku's POV. As soon as Izuku spoke, he zoned out, he couldn't think about anything. Aizawa was speaking to him and he knew that, however he couldn't think properly, all his thoughts were clouded. He eventually looked over at his worried dads and shook his head. No, it's okay, don't worry, thanks for telling me now, though at least I won't find out when I actually get to class. He chuckled slightly. Well, I'm going to get dressed, see you guys in a bit. Izuku waved to them, leaving half his meal and heading straight for his room. Aizawa and Yamada both looked at each other worried, but Izuku had already left the table as he truly let what was happening sink in. Well, shit. Hey everyone. So I know I haven't updated in 2 months now and I am like really sorry. I do not intend on ending the story though. I should have just said this earlier, but I will be on hiatus for a little while. I probably won't post again until around July. I know this may be really annoying because I know I hate it when I'm reading a story but it goes on hiatus, I'm really frustrated. However, I'm really busy doing coursework and stuff for my exams, so I just don't have a lot of time to sit down and plan and write and edit my chapters. I do have a plan for where this may go, however before I update again I intend having 5 to 10 chapters pre-written to avoid disappointment weekly. Again, I'm really sorry and by all means drop the story, but if you do wait, thanks, I'll try get my sheet together soon. Anyways, have a nice week. Love.